Everyone, this is Reverie Roundtable, which we have Mondays on 8 p.m. Eastern. Thanks all for being here. If you are new to this channel, right, and for some reason we haven't scared you off already, hit that follow button. Hit that follow button right now. Make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live. Expect for social word chat for our social media. We got Twitter, Discord, TikTok, and YouTube. Like, comment, and subscribe. Okay, now we will introduce all of our kind guests. We'll start with Lactoid. Lactoid is back with us. Thank you, Lactoid, for being here, good friend. I'm always happy when Lactoid says yes, right, to one of my invitations, right? Because I know he's always capable of having a great conversation. So thanks so much.
No, thank you so much for inviting me, Prime. As always, thank you. No, I'm really excited. I think the topics are going to be great. I think we got a great panel, as usual. So a lot of familiar faces and somebody who I actually haven't met before, who I think is going to be a very interesting part of this panel. I think it's going to be great. You can find me on Anti-Communism United on Discord and Twitch, and Anti-Com United on Twitter. Thank you.
Okay. He hasn't met you, Smooth, because my panels are segregated. Let's go to Scott. Scott, thanks for being here.
True. What percentage do I need to get on all black everything? What's the deal?
More than Doobie. If you have
what we just talked about,
one more drop of blood
give me a number.
Doobie says he's got 6 drops. Then as long as you've got 7, then yes.
All right. Well, I got way more than that, son. Yeah, I'm Scott from Fabian Liberty, anarcho-communist, which is basically just hardcore libertarian. Or you could say actually a libertarian. Yeah, you can find me Fabian Liberty pretty much everywhere. Liberty_Fabian on Twitter and Fabian Liberty everywhere else. But if you search Fabian Liberty, you'll find me. Just look for that sheep emote and those beautiful black and yellow colors. No two better colors in existence.
Okay. Let's go to our friend Wick, who is here as well. Wick, who I called in. Wick, I need your wisdom, as always. Wick, thanks for stopping by.
Oh, no, thank you for inviting me. I always appreciate the invite. Wrath of the Lich King Classic dropped today, but you know what? I put that aside, right? I put that aside for my friend. Because he needed me, and here I am. Yeah, interesting topics today. I'm really eager to kind of get into it with everyone here. I have seen Smooth before because I tune in to your All Black Everything, which is an excellent experience. And I believe we argued a little bit on the night the Queen passed away. But it was fun. And so whether we'll argue or not tonight remains to be seen, but we'll find out. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Apparently, I'm an
Let's
ANCOM
go
now.
to Aiko. Aiko, who is here. My great timing, right?
Yeah.
Aiko. Thanks, Aiko, for stopping by. Aiko's a great friend of the channel. Thanks for being here, buddy.
Oh yeah, sure, no problem. How's it going? My name's Aiko Rich. I don't stream yet, but I might at some point in the future. But yeah. Hello to everybody.
Short and sweet. Okay.
Yeah.
Next,
not as good
Smooth.
as I do be, but
That's true. Smooth. Thanks for being here, buddy. You helped come up with one of our topics, and I'm glad that you were able to join us. This is not the first time we've had you on Reverie, is it?
No. This is not the first time. The first time I was just absurdly quiet because I was like, I don't even know what's going on here.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Smooth from the Home Rule Smooth podcast. Obviously, I'm normally on All Black Everything, but here I am. Hi, Lactoid.
What is a Belgian triple?
Hi. I've seen the rest of you guys more than once. Yeah, here we are. Let's do this.
Okay, thank you. And finally, we have our Dark Lord and Savior Doobie back with us. Doobie, thanks for stopping by and joining us and immediately instigating fights.
I only speak the truth. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. You show me ugly tits, I'm going to say they're ugly. In chat, I'm
boobs are
no
fine.
Prime. She has the tits of a fat 12-year-old boy. Okay,
Are
like
you
they're not good.
kidding me?
They're not good. I'm sorry.
Okay, Boji says
This
that
is
her
why
boobs look like
Boji's.
that.
I know what Boji's boobs look like, and they don't look like that. Okay,
They don't look
Boji
like
has
that. I
nice
told her
boobs.
that.
They have
Yeah,
nice boobs. She's fishing for compliments because she just got back from vacation with her cuck husband, and now she's in chat saying, "Hey, everybody, let me show you my tits." That's what it is. Fuck you, Boji.
Wow.
I'm Doobie. I help run the politics server on Discord. Discord how she just politics.
Jesus Christ.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna have to leave that at that. I feel like if I say anything more, I'm gonna get in trouble. So, let's move on. Topic 1. In 2020, Oregon decriminalized all hard drugs and decided to put their effort into treatment. Since that time, drug overdoses have risen 20% over the previous year. And of the 16,000 people who accessed services in the first year of decriminalization, only 0.85% entered treatment. A total of 60% received harm reduction like syringe exchanges and overdose medications. Do you think that there is any truth to the criticism that this enables drug use? Is there another path forward other than this or incarceration? Yeah, so there's like a, like in 2020, Oregon did this, pioneering, groundbreaking move of like decriminalizing just about everything, like stuff that I hadn't even heard of. They decriminalized everything on the table. And now we have some data, and the data is decidedly mixed. And so I think people are rightly wondering like whether this is the path forward that we should be taking. So we'll ask our friends here, right? Lactoid. Like, were you ecstatic, right, when you knew there was a bastion of decriminalization where you could be yourself in Oregon, that the paradise was here on Earth?
Yeah, for lack of a better way of phrasing it, fundamentally, my opinion on this is that if you're an adult and you want to take a decision, make a decision which is going to be bad for you, you should be able to do it. If you want to, as long as the harm is limited to what you're doing, right? So if you want to smoke cigarettes or drink alcohol, which kill far more people than illegal drugs, you should be allowed to do it in the same way that if you want to eat McDonald's, which also kills more people than illegal drugs, you should be allowed to do that as well. As to the questions on the drugs specifically the drug question though in Portland, in Oregon, it is very difficult. I don't know how much of this is due to the fact that the years we're measuring here is in 2020, which was the beginning of the pandemic, and we know there's like a lot of social and mental issues that came out of that, and that might be pushing up drug use in ways that maybe doesn't necessarily have to do with the decriminalization of drugs. I looked at the numbers. Although it's record-setting, it's not actually that much more than in the prior years. So it's going up, but it's not as crazy as you would think. It's like only by a few tens or roughly around there. It's still in the low hundreds. So it's not like this is something that I think it's not killing all of Oregon. Ultimately, there's probably some truth to the critique here that it may enable some drug use. We did see that alcohol consumption went down during Prohibition. There is some evidence to suggest that actually that drug use does go down during the drug war. I think that when you look at all the negative ramifications, though, you look at the paternalism of the state over individual choices. Those are massive harms and need to be weighed against this. And also, when you look at what's killing people, it's fentanyl. Right, that's what's responsible for most of these deaths, and people are injecting fentanyl most of the time unwittingly because the drugs are illegal in the first place and come from areas of the world where there's no, where they're not required to put a warning label, hey, this contains fentanyl on it. If we legalize drugs, not just decriminalize, but legalize drugs and said, hey, you can't lie about what you're actually giving people, right? If you're giving someone fentanyl, you have to tell them what percentage of fentanyl you're giving them. I think you would see at that point a pretty dramatic reduction in people overdosing because people would know exactly how much they need to take, and probably they wouldn't even take fentanyl at all.
Thank you, Scott. Please.
Okay, so First thing I want to say, yes to everything Lactoid said. Second thing I want to say, if you call yourself left-wing and you support Blizzard Activision, you are the biggest hypocrite one could ever possibly be, because Blizzard and Activision under the leadership of Bobby Kotick had the torturer advisor for George W. Bush sending threatening emails to their own employees. It is a culture rampant with sexual assault and tons of allegations of horrific treatment of women, to the point where one woman even committed suicide. You support a company that is with a CEO that's one of the richest in the world, that makes $78,000 an hour working for Blizzard. And you are support a company that directly does everything they can to fight National Labor Review Board and things like that. So just don't call yourself left-wing and support Blizzard. Or if you see someone supporting Blizzard in any way, know that they're a hypocrite and that they're not left-wing, or at the very least, they're pro-sexual assault, sexual harassment, against labor unions, and love massively paid Bobby Kotick and all those other wonderful things. Third, so when you actually look at the data, what you'll find is that nationwide during the same period, the entire nation had a 16% increase in drug overdoses. So it's 4% more than nationwide. You look at CDC for the last 12 months, it's a little bit worse, right? Which is to say it's an 11% increase versus a 3.9% increase. The problem is that every state has a little bit of a different reporting that they do. It's not, you don't get perfect reporting, so we don't really know. We do know that funding for audits for the reports of overdoses was also part of that bill that spent hundreds of millions of dollars. So you would expect an increase no matter what, because you would expect some increase in proper reporting because they're being audited, right? So there's going to be that as well. So this is kind of the problem when you take like a univariate analysis and you do bad science, but that's what journalists and Twitch streamers do most of the time, right? That's just this is how that works. The next thing I would say is decriminalization is not legalization, and so it doesn't get rid of most of the problems that come with the war on drugs. So, for example, as Lactoid pointed out with fentanyl, if it was legalized, as opposed to $100 fines every time you got caught and harsher sentences for sales and distribution, what you could have is you could have businesses that like have Yelp reviews, that have like, that show you where they get their drugs from, that show you the manufacturing process. You could regulate these things by the state, or at the very least, the market could regulate these things. Instead, people are still dying from fentanyl overdoses. The last point that I want to make during it, I'll give prescriptions, what I would do. But the last point that I want to make is that Oregon was particularly strict during the lockdowns. It just so happens to be that November 2021 was when the bill was finalized, is also when the governor of Oregon threatened to put people in jail if they had more gatherings of more than 6 people. And what we know about drug addiction is that drug addiction is not about access to drugs. Drug addiction is not about whether or not drugs are illegal. Drug addiction is about comorbidities, depression, anxiety, financial support in your home. Do you have people supporting you, etc.? People that have those things don't get addicted to drugs, and people that don't have those things do. And so when Oregon decided that they wanted to destroy their economy and lock people up and ruin jobs and things like that, much like the rest of the country, but in some ways worse than other places, you're going to see a confounding variables that make the drug addiction worse.
Shout out to Scott on the Blizzard commentary there. I didn't expect to hear that from you, but I respect it. So fuck Activision.
Yeah, fuck Blizzard. Fuck Bobby Kotick.
Fuck Bobby Kotick. God damn it. All right, thanks so much. Let's go to Wick.
Yeah, I just want to play a video game with my friends, gang. It's not that deep. My influence on my friendships, right, and the value that I can bring to them by playing this as a game is much more than any value I would be by boycotting them. And that's where I weigh my effects of my
That sounds like a topic for later on.
Yes, it does, but this is not the topic at hand, right? But I had to sit there and get woke scolded for a while and whatever. But I will say that regulation is good, and I'm glad that we have
woke scolded by an ANCAP,
agreeing that government regulation could solve a lot of these problems. The problem is with decriminalization, Fabian's exactly right, doesn't solve the problem. There are confounding variables at play as well that we have to take into. I echo Lactoid. We are not studying a normal span of years when we look at 2020, 2021, during the lockdowns and things like that. These are confounding variables. The things that it would be a mistake to draw too many conclusions here from the data that we have. At the end of the day, even if drug overdoses and drug use were to rise a little bit, right? Obviously, there's a level would be not okay with it, but even if they were to increase by a percentage or two, I think that allowing people to have the freedom to make their decisions, such as we allow people to drink, we allow people to smoke, we allow people to eat bad foods, etc. These all outweigh the value of trying to prevent and keep them safe and things like that. Let people make bad decisions. And that's where I stand on this. I think that we cannot use this study or this information. It is not saleable. It's not something that's convincing to me yet. I'd need to see more. That's all.
Thanks so much. Let's go to Aiko.
Yeah, I mean, I think the study does seem salient to me, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the policy needs to end or that the policy isn't successful. It's just the first set of data being reported out on an experiment that we need to look at for a longer period of time before we can judge whether it's successful. And the reason I say that is because it's being compared to the experiment in Portugal, which is now 20 years on. We have a lot more data from that. And one of the things that we know about what Portugal did is they passed this law and they started implementing it, and it took them a couple of years to implement it. So they didn't just immediately decriminalize everything overnight. They put infrastructure in place to make sure that instead of things like courts and police and people like that, there was something that would replace it. Maybe something like drug courts, which have been used in America in the past. And because of that, we don't really it might just be that the implementation here happened a lot faster than the one in Portugal. And if it had been phased in and all of the resources that were necessary in order to make this successful were brought into play first, and then maybe a couple of years down the road is when the decriminalization starts kicking in. At that point, it might have been a lot more successful the way Portugal's has. And I think we have to take that into account before, evaluating the total effect of this law in the long run. I think we can maybe we can argue that it wasn't successful in the short run, and for the reasons that I just talked about. But that, ultimately, you want these laws to be successful over the long term. The only other thing I would add is that I do think that people do get to make their own choices about what risks they want to take when it comes to health and that sort of thing. The only thing that that sort of I back off on that a little bit is that if you're talking about drugs that are highly addictive and that rob you of your ability to choose, and we can debate about which drugs do that and which drugs don't. So we do have to maybe think about how do we give people an off ramp from a drug that is going to be affecting the way that their brain thinks. And they might not be able to make the most rational choices. Overall, though,
alcohol is one of the worst.
Decriminalization. I think there's a big difference between decriminalization and legalization, and I also think there's a big difference between what this law does, which was to decriminalize people for simple possession, as opposed to decriminalizing people who are pushing drugs, especially if they're pushing drugs on kids. But also, it's not legal in Oregon even now to sell drugs to other people or even to possess large numbers of drugs.
Okay, give me 1 second. Sorry, this thing is in my way. All right, you guys should be able to hear me now. So, my position on it is I think this was done haphazardly. Like they wanted, the goal was good, but they just ran out the house like, oh my God, we're just gonna go do this, but we're not gonna pack any bags or anything. Like they didn't prepare anything for people. And then there's so much bureaucracy, red tape. Like it's been 16 months since it's been implemented, and not that many funds have went out. They have hundreds of millions of dollars just sitting there. And it hasn't happened. Why? Because there's components of the government obviously are don't want things to change, and they want to see this law fail. That's one. Then you have two. You have with that on the same side. You have them fighting COVID, and then you have them dealing with like police reform, like defund the police and things of that nature, which don't help, which doesn't help their statistics because you have less police on the street policing people, keeping them from doing violent crimes and all the other stuff, because typically the drugs lead into people doing violent crime, and now they can arrest these people or get them off the street. But I would say if they would have at least started with the pathway to at least when the police arrest people for drug possession, they take them somewhere else. Like you can force the people to get help instead of actually just, okay, well, I'm going to write you this citation. The guy runs away. You can't write them a ticket. This is coming from the police chief from Portland. He's like, I can't write them a ticket or anything. They can just run off. And it's like, all right, well, I just wasted my time. And so now you have most of the officers, they're not going to waste their time trying to even write somebody a citation to tell them to go seek help. Like that's how it's set up in Portland. Like you literally go, oh my God, you need help. You know what I'm saying? Here's the number. And so the person takes the number and they like throw it in the trash and they go back to shooting up the drugs. It's not working. The system isn't working. And they should have done better. They should have thought it through.
Thank you. And finally, Doopy.
I think I don't want to live in a degenerate society that normalizes the use of hard drugs. Like first off, I think that if we had a way to send people to like a shadow realm, so we were all shielded from the consequences of their hedonism, I could be convinced to change my mind. But given the sad fact that we haven't found a way to do that, and I have to breathe the same air they do, I think I have an interest in making sure that they're not doing dumb shit that hurts me in my community. I don't want to pay for their fucking rehab. I don't want to pay for their hospital visits. I don't want to pay for their safe needles. I think that if you do this shit, you should be put in a cell until you agree not to do it anymore. That's it, right? And if you're caught selling this or producing it, also put in a cage. If you do enough of it, I think you could be executed, right? Because you're literally selling poison into a community that kills thousands of people in our country. Right, so I think that all this, oh well, hey, let people make bad decisions shit is cope. It's not realistic. It's stupid.
And to be clear, as far as I know, my friend Doobie isn't trolling. He's been very consistent about this the entire goddamn time. So
I think the position that I just espoused is like the average, the mainstream American position on drugs. I think most people you find out there are not going to be like, hey, well, let them do meth in their own homes. They're not going to hurt anybody. That's fucking stupid. No, like most people aren't going to be okay with buying meth at Walmart, right? Like you guys are proposing. It's just not. It's not something that people are okay with these days. And I think me being the one on the panel that is saying the mainstream thing, I think it maybe indicates that you guys are pretty far out in the fringes on this topic. It felt like dangerously out in the fringes because you're so fucking concerned about being progressive or libertarian, free will, or whatever the fuck it is, right? Like it's silly. Right?
Invite Duterte.
As the Joker said, we live in a society. What you do hurts me. What I do hurts you. We can't just ignore what people do.
Mm-hmm. Look, well, when it comes down to it, though, Doobie, right? Like I acknowledge that my position is not mainstream, and that's fine, right? I still think that like I can acknowledge that there are problems when it comes to legalizing hard drugs. That there are issues with that, and we need to take that into account. Right? Well, like you said, there's a very real risk of normalizing this use and drug.
What happens when you normalize use of hard drugs?
Like there are bad outcomes. It leads
what are
to people die. People overdose and die.
Yeah, the most vulnerable people in our society die.
No,
children
I get that.
Die. People get forced into fucking prostitution because they're drug addicts.
But this happens with a lot of
people are driving down the street with their kids and get run over by fucking drug addicts.
We should legalize prostitution as well.
Yeah, this happens, right? No, real quick, let me finish. This happens with alcohol, cigarettes, and other drugs too. These outcomes, right, that are bad, that kill people, absolutely happen.
I'd agree with that.
Legalized this.
So what you're in effect telling us, hey, we allow this other bad shit, let's allow more bad shit. No, let's get rid of the bad shit. No more alcohol, no more cigarettes.
Right. No more sugar. No more things that are bad for your diet.
These things are massively restricted.
No more leisure time.
There's
Let's also
huge
make sure
fucking
that we
obesity epidemic in the United States. Like,
make sure that we legally limit and cut off people's TVs and computers so they go to the gym more. I mean, the logic that you use is that because something has bad outcomes, that you by your subjective analysis, you get to wield the axe of authority to force people into it, and fuck all the bad outcomes that come from the enforcement. But what I wanted to say is I just want to read 3 sentences from the opening lines of the second most read book in all of American history. That would be Thomas Paine's Common Sense. And this is all that I have to say about you saying most Americans think this. Perhaps the sentiments contained in the following pages are not yet sufficiently fashionable to procure them general favor. A long habit of not thinking a thing wrong gives it a superficial appearance of being right, and raises at first a formidable outcry and the defense of custom. But the tumult soon subsides. Time makes more converts than reason.
It sounds like something that you'd hear from the National Association of Man-Boy Love. Right? Hey, yeah, it's not mainstream right now, but just because it's not mainstream doesn't mean it's not okay. Children can love adults. Adults can love children. Love is love. Right? That's stupid. Like it's silly. It's flowery bullshit. That doesn't mean anything.
You know what it also sounds like? It sounds like something, I don't know, like William Lloyd Garrison might have quoted when he was fighting against slavery, because a majority of Americans supported enslaving black people. Just because something isn't a majority opinion doesn't mean that it's reasonable, that it's logical, or that it's a good idea in any way, shape, or form. That's a dumb.
Yeah, we shouldn't take
argument.
it as a given, but you'll need to give me a reason it isn't a good idea. And none of you have so far beyond. Hey, we should let people do what they want to do, which is on its face fucking stupid.
Do you think
I need to step away for like 30 seconds? Whoa, 1 second. I need to step away for like 30 seconds, so you guys will be able to dribble for like 30 seconds, but I'm going to be listening. Okay, give me 1 second.
Okay, sure. You can respond, Wick, or anyone else.
Sure, please. But to Doobie, like, we have seen the negative consequences of the war on drugs. We have seen the communities it has devastated. We've seen the bad outcomes. We've seen people literally die because of this kind of prohibition we've had on these things. Like this, what we are doing, I think we can both acknowledge. We may not agree on how to fix this, but what we are doing is not working. It is not working. Making these things illegal just across the board with all these kind of enforcement just has not worked for us, right? There are bad outcomes. We can do better. Now, if you think that there is another way, some secret third way, right? I'm all ears, right?
Well,
but when it comes down, go on.
Since you mentioned the third way, I mean, I disagree like about 50% with what Doobie's saying, but I agree with the other 50%, which is to say we should care about the impact that this is happening on people. But if you go and you look at the statistics, 20 years of data out of Portugal, which is a lot more than what we have out of this Oregon study, and what we're seeing is that the number of people who die from drugs in Portugal, it has the second lowest death rate from drugs out of any country in Europe, and they're the only country that has this policy. So the idea here isn't just
drastically reduce HIV rates too, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. HIV rates and also drug deaths way down in Portugal. So, and the key is what made it successful was that it wasn't just legalizing drugs. It was decriminalizing drugs and then also replacing the infrastructure that was around all of that with an infrastructure that's designed to educate people on what drugs can do to you, convince them to stop, and to provide them resources that will help get them out of that situation. So this isn't encouraging drug use. It's not normalizing drug use. Like, people still have the stigma about drugs in Portugal, but it's just that we don't throw you in prison for using it. Because the fact is, if you're an addict, the number one goal that we should have for that person should be to get them off of those like hard drugs. But at the same time, throwing them in prison isn't what's going to get them off those drugs. I mean, yeah, obviously they can't take it once they're there, although they can actually. But also, once they get out, they go straight back to being an addict because they don't have the resources that it takes to be able to sustain themselves in other ways, or to like not to be able to defeat their addiction. So we're not talking about normalization here. All we're talking about is a solution that helps people get off drugs other than
so
prison.
You're not giving my question to the correct issue though. You're dealing with a symptom. The drug use is a symptom of other issues that you're ignoring.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm saying we should stop ignoring those other issues.
So
Right,
is,
and
so
I don't
is-
think you need to
so is-
normalize the
so is
poison
criminalizing
people are.
drugs.
Wait, so one at a time. I want Dewey to respond because a lot of things were said at him, and then we're going to smooth, and we'll go to Lactoid and Scott. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't think it makes sense to. It sounds like we're proposing issues to deal with the consequences of a symptom of what the actual problem is, right? So yeah, people get addicted to drugs after they get out of prison, or they're depressed, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're poor in poor communities, and they have nothing to do, and they're depressed in their poor communities, or they're in gangs, whatever and it seems like rather than deal with all these other issues that are leading people to drug use, we are saying, hey, accept that they're going to do drugs, and we should try to get them off of it on the back end, rather than dealing with the front end issue, which is that they're poor and they're in fucked up communities and there are gangs around them, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Deal with that issue first. I don't think it makes any sense whatsoever ever to normalize, and you're normalizing drug use when you do this. You're not just normalizing it. I think you're in some ways encouraging it. These safe injection sites that they set up in Portland these are like magnets for young people who want to try this stuff out, don't really have a safe way to do it at home. So they go to these safe injection sites and like, hey, I'm going to try meth for just once, just see what it's like. And maybe they get addicted there. Maybe they want to try it again somewhere else outside of this clinical environment. Right? It's just like you are normalizing it to people when you even open it up as an option.
Okay, let's go to smooth Lactoid.
So I think we have to ask ourselves a question. Okay, if we do want people to legally be able to use these drugs, why are we helping them get off these drugs? We can't have it both ways. You can't tell people, oh, you can do this thing and it's okay, but then turn around and say, but it's bad for you. Let's get you off of said thing at the same time. I don't think that works. It's like it's the equivalent of telling your kid, oh, candy's bad for you, but then you hand them a bag of Skittles. Like which one is it? Like your kid won't correlate the two, and I think a lot of people that are just wanting to attempt to try things, they're just using this as an opportunity to go try it, and it's ending up with a lot of very bad outcomes. I feel like honestly we should have left it illegal, but provided better options for people to get treatment. I'm not saying we can adjust what the punishment is for doing said drugs, but it still needs to be where you are not supposed to do this thing. We can adjust the punishment and just the system, so therefore they are getting a good outcome outside of their drug use. We can't say go to this site, you legally use these drugs, and it's okay. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you're good. This is a safe injection site. You're good. All right, cool. You're good and high. Go out there and have fun. Like that's not good. That doesn't produce good. I don't know what part of that sounds good to people.
That's what I say to Lactoid all the time. You're good and high. Go out there and have fun. Go ahead, Lactoid.
So they put a couple things said so far, and some of the benefits that come when it, not only decriminalizing but also legalizing drugs, namely, Portugal has less HIV, which I think is a massive benefit, but also you know what you're getting, you know what drugs are actually in the vials that you're injecting or what you're smoking. I think it's important when it comes to health. Most people don't intend to overdose and die. It's either because the hit they took was too strong, and they didn't know what they were doing, or they were unsupervised, which I think is a problem as well. And I think these try to combat that. But Doobie and anybody else who opposes this, another benefit I think that people don't think about as much is if you accept the empirical reality that in the United States, all gangs, and in Mexico, all the cartels derive their primary source of income from the sale of illegal narcotics. And if you were to legalize drugs and take that out of the hands of gang members and cartels, you would undoubtedly shrink the size of these violent organizations to, I'm going to go ahead and say it, likely negligible levels. We're not going to see the level of gang violence that we currently see, because there's just not the financial incentive to run with a gang if you're not making the money from selling drugs. And personally, like, while I get, the feeling of individual safety, I want to feel safe in my home, or when I'm walking on the street, and do addicts sitting on the side of the street make me feel unsafe? Sometimes. But I feel more unsafe by gang members walking around or holding corners or driving up and down the road, because and they're carrying like heavy weaponry because they can afford it and because they need it because they're always shooting each other, and that has massive effects. And gang members target children for recruitment all the time. I mean, isn't that a benefit, like such a big benefit that needs to be calculated into this overall equation?
But like,
Yeah,
like Doobie said though, like, but like Doobie said, he said it earlier. Like, if you're not addressing the root cause of these issues, the people join these gangs because they're broke.
Yeah, and selling drugs makes you money.
But why not give him a different means to make money?
Yeah, you take the drugs away, you just have a broke person who's even more desperate because he doesn't have drugs to sell. Yeah, I was gonna say you take the drugs away. You just have a broke person still who doesn't have drugs to sell in the area, right? Because unless he's gonna go get a job at some dispensary somewhere, which getting a license for those is fucking hell in California at least.
He can work as a cashier. You don't have to own one.
Oh, okay, yeah. All these gang members, hey, just go work as a cashier with your fucking criminal record. Just go work as a cashier.
That's gonna fly.
Handle money with your fucking criminal record. No,
you think broke people are more dangerous than gang members, like people in the Bloods and the Crips?
No,
I think desperate
members of the Jalisco cartel. You think these people are
I think desperate people are dangerous. You probably just see an increase in like robberies and shit because they're still broke. They still need money.
Okay, so let me actually go through this because Doobie says, look, you're not actually addressing the problem. And Doobie, I agree with you. The biggest thing we have to do, much like with the last panel that I was on, is fatherlessness. Right? That is a huge factor in drug addiction. So how do you deal with fatherlessness? One of the ways you don't deal with fatherlessness is having a war on drugs that locks fathers up in jail. Because that's usually who are doing this, is young men are the individuals that end up in jail. Now, when you have a war on drugs, instead of having the market be able to handle safe drugs and businesses and companies, what you do is you actually create a localized Gini coefficient or income inequality, where you have poor neighborhoods that have high crime because of the gangs, because of the war on drugs, though they do engage in sex trafficking as well as cartels, for whatever reason, sell a fuck ton of avocados, hilariously enough. But that being said, you cause these communities to have crime because of the war on drugs. Because now what you've done is you lock up fathers, put them in jail, you lock up members of the community, put them in jail, and this creates this cycle that repeats over and over again, where you pull fathers out, more drug addicts come up, and then what you have is you have crime-infested, gang-infested neighborhoods that are over-fucking policed to try and stop the drugs that will always fucking be in places where they'll always be everywhere, much less in places where people are desperate. And then you have rich individuals in gangs that are going, hey, this is where the money's at. Like, you live in a shit neighborhood with a lot of crime, but if you come to us, like, this is where we make money. This is where we have respect. This is where we have dignity in our community. And so you start destroying the community itself. It's not just the drugs, but it is the policing of the drugs that destroys the community. If you stop the war on drugs, you stop arresting fathers and putting them in jail, people have families again, you get rid of the crime incentive. And so because there's more families and less poverty, businesses move in, people want to like support business, there's more jobs, there's better opportunities, etc. But when you just keep a fuck ton of police knocking over a fucking trap house that's filled with a different group of people doing the exact same shit the very next fucking day, all you've done is fuck over the neighborhood more, and you haven't stopped fucking drugs. That is why we need legalization, not decriminalization. We need legalization. And we need a culture that looks at people and says, that shit's gross. You shouldn't do that. We should shame people that are doing that. We should shame people that sell drugs. And at the same time, you should do the same thing with marijuana. And you should do the same thing with fucking alcohol, because alcohol is one of the few drugs that we know of that makes people violent. Okay. It's like PCP, a couple of like synthetic hallucinogens, alcohol, and meth, and like crocodile and shit. Like, most drugs don't even make you violent the way that alcohol does. The fact of the matter is it's one of the worst drugs, but because we socially accept it, it's a problem. And you say, well, that's the legalization of it is the reason that it's socially acceptable. But why was it decriminalized? Was because of a culture that didn't accept it socially. The culture, the politics follows the culture, not the other way around. What we need is a culture of people that are willing to fight back against this, to stop destroying fucking low socioeconomic communities and actually start working to help people. Now, if you guys want to do government programs to make the help better, like, you know, you can advocate for that and I'll tell you to fuck off. But when it comes to drug legalization, like, that is the way that we stop destroying these communities, stop crime, stop fatherlessness, and stop drug addiction.
So so fatherlessness is like, okay, cool. Like, we locked up the father for his drug offense or whatever. Yes, that's part of it, and the war on drugs is absolutely terrible. But you can accomplish that without legalizing said activity. Like, you don't have to legalize it. You just have to put these people that commit these offenses in a totally different place, in a totally different program that gives them resources and changes their mindset and their way of thinking to push them into a different direction and put them on a different path. That's what they need. They don't need to be able to, people don't need to be able to go out here and try this thing. Because it does is create more addicts.
Dude, have you ever lived in like a ghetto? Like, have you ever lived in like a really poor area of the projects or anything?
No. I just exist. I just exist. Yes, of course.
I'm just asking. I mean, I don't fucking know your life. I'm just asking.
Yes, I have.
Okay, well, I have too. So you know just as well as I do that it don't matter what fucking access to these drugs there are. Motherfuckers find it. That's just a bad argument. Like, motherfuckers find these drugs no matter what laws exist. Period.
Where do they find it? Is it just like under a rock somewhere? Like,
what do you mean under a rock somewhere? People.
They're just gonna find it, right? As if it's not coming from fucking drug dealers and manufacturers. I think
yes.
What the starting point should be.
Since Nixon, we've been arresting those people. It hasn't done shit.
More, not just arrest. I think far more draconian laws on people producing and selling the drugs, right? Fucking destroy them, execute them even, right? For selling and producing these drugs into these communities, right? I think you cut out that fucking root, and then everybody else, the users,
digging the hole deeper users, is not going to fucking work.
I don't think that digs a hole deeper. I think that if you're a desperate father, right, and your response to that desperation is to sell poison into your fucking community and destroy the lives of countless people, you should be executed. I don't care that you're desperate. There are plenty of desperate people who don't do shit like that.
Let's
you
go.
You don't get to say, "Hey, I'm just broke. I'm desperate, so I need to poison everybody in my fucking community and get them addicted to drugs." Fuck that.
Let's let our friend Ike
go in. Same argument about sugar.
Let's let our friend Ike go in.
Yeah. So
kill the bakers.
Listen, I mean, Doogie, right? When you say we shouldn't let people like sell these things, you're describing the Oregon law. The Oregon law, it's still illegal
Girl
to
Scout
sell drugs
cookies
in Oregon.
Girl Scouts.
Like,
murder Girl Scouts.
It's just simple.
What's
possession.
the penalty in Oregon?
It's the. I mean, I would have to look it up for any given individual drug, but they didn't make any changes to that. Like the law that exists for people who push drugs in Oregon is the same as it was before. Like, this law didn't change any of that. It only changed simple possession, also for relatively low amounts. So if you possess large amounts where they can assume that you're probably selling or sharing or giving your drugs to people, then it's still illegal there. There's still the same penalties. It's just they're only legalizing it for those who use the drugs. But also, what you suggested earlier, which was that we should address the root causes. And when you talked about the root causes, you talked about addressing poverty and addressing all these other reasons people pursue drugs. I think everyone on this panel probably agrees with that. Putting people in prison doesn't address root causes any more than decriminalization
That's not true.
does. Like,
putting some people in prison does. Absolutely, it does.
Yeah, sure. The people who are selling the drugs, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Right. That's still illegal.
I'm okay with treating addicts. Hold on. I just looked it up really quickly for you.
Yeah, sure.
So in Oregon, manufacture of drugs, right, is 5 years in prison. That is nowhere near fucking enough, right? Given the impact that these drugs have on these communities and on the country, nowhere near enough. Should be like a bare minimum 20 years automatically.
25.
Yeah, like this should be something that people do with the understanding that if you get caught doing this, your entire life is fucked forever.
Okay, that's not addressing
right.
And if you get caught, make the problem worse.
And if it's bad enough, if you're producing enough, or if you've been doing it long enough, it's execution. You get fucking executed for it. This should not be seen as a viable means of like.
Do you think that kind of laws are going to make things better. I think it's absolutely going to make things worse.
that's-
It's going to
For who?
escalate.
you're,
It's an
he's saying
escalation.
get
who?
rid of the
Worse
But
for
that
who?
still doesn't
Fucking
address
drug dealers.
what this law does,
Manufacturer
because this law
of said
doesn't
drug.
make any changes to those penalties.
Can-
Like you can say perhaps it should, and that's fine. But if we're debating what this law did, we're talking about on the user side, people who use the drugs. And
Well,
whether
on
or
the
not-
user side, I can understand being more lenient, right? So the first time offense, I
That's
can
it.
understand, like, hey, mandatory rehab, mandatory, not hey, you maybe, and a fine and community service. But then after that, if you're continuing to fund this industry, and you'd be required to tell the police where you got the drugs from. You'd be required to snitch on your dealer immediately, right? And if you don't do that, then hey, you are assisting this organization that is poisoning your community, destroying the lives of God knows how many people. Fuck you. You go to prison for a long time.
Right,
Like
the
and
results
again,
of
if
this are gonna
repeated
be, like-
offenses, if you're going to keep funding this industry and acting as a contributor and as a participant in this industry that's fucking up your community, then I don't care that you're addicted.
The results of this are going to be like mass escalations in violence just across the board, right? Because now people will have
It
They
no.
already
already have
happens.
that.
It
They
already
have mass
happens.
escalation and violence.
You
Portland.
don't think it can get worse? You think we've reached
I'm
peak
sure it
violence
can.
levels?
I'm sure it can. I'm sure it'll get worse before it gets better, right? You tell the drug dealers, hey, if we catch you selling these fucking drugs, we're gonna execute you. Right? Yeah, they're gonna be pretty desperate, they're gonna be pretty afraid. But I'm sure gonna have a lot of people who are gonna back the fuck out of this industry because they don't want to take that kind of risk.
Okay, so Doobie, if that being the case, how would you explain the success in Portugal?
Portugal isn't like a. There's a lot of factors here. So factor number one, right, is it's not like is decriminalized as you say in Portugal, right? I think they do have mandatory rehab, first off, and they do have prison sentences for drug possession, even if you do it repeatedly. They have prison sentences for drug dealing, drug manufacturing. Right, so it's not like they're just saying, "Hey, yeah, it's decriminalized." So if you get caught with it, it's like a misdemeanor or something. They're requiring that you go to rehab, right? And if it happens repeatedly, you will go to jail, right? So I think that's number one.
Not
But I
for
think
20
our
years.
proximity to a fucking narco state, Mexico, is a massive problem, right? And I'd support military action there from the United States to help them wipe that fucking problem out because that problem is hurting us. Right. And thirdly,
You're not offering.
I think we have a really fucked up culture that is promoting this drug use and has been for decades in the Black community especially, but in all communities. We have like stoner comedies as if it's fucking nothing. We had those before it was legal to smoke weed. Right, promoting drug use. We have this fucking rap music that was doing it. We have rock and roll music that was doing it. That was making songs about the shit, and putting it in front of children and encouraging them to go out and do it because it was cool to get high. Right, this fucking culture is fucking, it's rotten. You need to cut it out.
So
And
first
I
and
think we
foremost,
start that by not allowing those
sorry.
people to produce that kind of music anymore.
So first
Or-
and
wait,
foremost,
wait,
first and
wait,
foremost,
Okay.
Doobie.
I've been chilling. I've been chilling.
I know. I'm making a quick comment that I do want to hear from Scott.
Doobie. Cutting the music is not going to solve anything because all you're going to do is put somebody back in the. At least it's helping people. Some people get out of poverty now. Whatever. I'll leave it alone for now. You can go ahead, Scott.
Well, let me
So,
just ask you to think about something really quickly while Scott goes. So how many fucking little white kids or white adults knew what lean was before it became popular in music? Think about that. Or Molly before it became popular in music. Not many, right? The reason people know what the shit is, the reason these people know what the shit is, and have started using it in a lot of cases is because it's in music. It's because it became cool to have your fucking purple drink.
I gotta look it up because I don't know.
Would you illegalize that?
No,
Yeah,
Scott,
absolutely.
Scott, no. Scott's been waiting.
So,
Please, Scott.
so again, this is. I hate fucking dealing with consequentialists, which all of you are. But if we're going to engage in that debate about outcomes and theorizing outcomes as opposed to what is morally just and unjust in using violence against other people, we're going to go into that space. The first thing is you're saying, well, why does this music exist? Right? Like, you're not asking why. That's the biggest problem to all of the analysis that you do.
Why.
Is every time that you do something, you go, you look at first order consequences of something given a present state, and you don't ask to try and zoom out and figure out what the picture is, right? Why is it that these communities are so impoverished and they have a gangster culture that goes into their music. Well, maybe a war on drugs that has been utilized to stop black people from protesting against certain administrations, and so that they could stop the hippie and anti-war movement, and has been used to keep the black community down for fucking decades, and is causing these things, and is causing this economic pressure, and has caused this gang culture, is a part of the life that they fucking live, and the music represents the life that they live. And in many ways, yes, people grift and capitalize on that. But the thing is that like, you're not solving the problem. The problem is comorbidities. If you came in here and you said, if you want to be draconian, like, I'll argue with why you're being draconian is fucking wrong. But if the draconian measures that you were taking were, how do we fix depression? Well, I'm going to ban social media. How do we fix anxiety? Same thing. I'm going to ban that shit. How do we fix fatherlessness? Well, I'm going to stop the war on drugs, or I'm going to do something else to stop fatherlessness, like getting rid of child support or something. You want to be draconian in any way that you want, but you're not addressing the fucking problems. What you're doing is doubling down on policies that have caused these fucking problems.
I think the fact that you would it seems to me like you're equating the war on drugs with the reason the black community and the Hispanic community in the United States is so like typically impoverished these days. I think that's pretty offensive, right? These communities were oppressed in 1,000 ways, separate from the fucking drugs, and in a lot of ways, the government cracking down on drug use and drug selling helped these communities. Right, because they were the ones being victimized. They were the ones being. I'm not pivoting. I'm not pivoting at all. I'm not pivoting at all.
Well, then,
you rambled for a long time. It's gonna take me a little bit to. It's gonna take me a little bit to respond. Okay, calm.
Okay, Doobie.
Okay. So
keep going.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
I'm
in a
fucking
lot of ways,
No,
the drug war helped these communities because these communities were the ones that were being victimized the most by drug use, by drug selling, by addiction, et cetera, by the gangs that sell these things, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So to say that, hey, the drug war hurt these communities when the drug war fucking cleaned out a lot of them and massively lowered the crime rate in a lot of these communities and helped a lot of these communities be able to just have for their kids fucking walk down the street without being harassed by gang members trying to pull them into gangs and shit is really silly. Secondly,
different point.
I think that
third point.
I'd agree with you that the reason these songs are being made, right, isn't because there's like some evil plot on the part of these artists, quote unquote, to normalize drug use or to normalize codeine or lean or whatever the fuck it is. It's because this is what they're experiencing. Yes, I agree, absolutely. But I would say that there is some interest from the top of these racist ass music studios to push this kind of culture upon the community, to encourage this kind of culture within these communities, because they're racist fucking the one that can keep these communities down. So making it cool to be a gangster, making it cool to do lean or smoke weed or do crack or whatever the fuck is actually helpful to their long-term goals, which is to keep this community down and buying their shit.
Okay, so
after that, I won't lack to it.
So to the first point, why am I racist for saying that targeting this specific culture?
I didn't say you're racist.
You know what? Right. Well, you implied it. It's fine. So what I'll say is, shut up. So what I'll say is that the exact same argument applies to Appalachian culture. It's the exact same thing. Low socioeconomic, overwhelmingly predominantly white. Same exact situation applies there, and the same community has been ravaged in Appalachia, primarily, first and foremost, from pharmaceutical companies and the FDA and the government. And then people got hooked on heroin after they were fucking hooked on oxycodone and lied to. So I'll say that, number one. Number two, the idea of like the music industry, having this nefarious plot. No, they're there to make money. So they're gonna sell whatever sells. It's fucking manufactured bullshit. They find some random person that's stupid enough to sign a deal where they make fucking 2%, if even that, and all of their money has to come from fucking merchandise sales. They force them to make stupid fucking music because that's what fucking sells, because they don't give a fuck about their long-term career. And you can tell the difference between people that like are actually independent or people like, that have like signed deals after they had a very large following, etc., because their music is different. But the fact of the matter is that it's not these corporations trying to sell this culture. It's that the culture is sick and wants to buy this shit. This idea that like price is influenced and that culture is influenced by like corporations that are designed to hit a specific profit. is just bad economic theory. And again, you're not addressing the fact, you pivoted completely away from the fact that you're not addressing that the war on drugs causes fatherlessness, that it causes crime. These things are directly caused in many ways by the war on drugs. It helps profit overdoses. It helps profit bad medication. It helps profit gangs and cartels. It helps profit a community that's full of crime from those gangs, where many people feel like the only way out of that area is through crimes. It is a vicious cycle that we have to stop. If you want to stop poisoning our communities, then stop looking at the gang members who are perpetrators, but in many ways also victims of government oppression and have fucked over their communities for generations now. We have to stop fucking them over if we want to fix them.
Can I respond to that really quickly?
Yes,
Just,
you can
I
respond.
just want
and
you
I
to
do want to hear
think-
Mike Dwight as well.
Sure. So I won't be long. I just want to say that I think if you were to compare, I haven't looked this up right off the top of my head, but I'm sure it's true. If you were to compare the rate of like drug use in the Black community to the rate of fatherlessness, right, they're going to be far off from each other. I don't think it's the drug war that are putting Black men in prison that's causing fatherlessness. I think there are other issues within the community, within the white community too, which is also seeing its rate of fatherlessness go up. The Hispanic community also seeing it go up. I don't think you can attack all that onto the drug war. I think there are a ton of other fucking issues that you'd be much better off dealing with. That you don't need to legalize drugs to deal with.
That's a good straw man, but it's not what I said.
Thank you.
So Zuby, you referenced the narco state, which I think it's definitely a huge issue. It's a driver of a lot of negative, a lot of problems. But I'm curious. People have been bringing up things like sugar and cigarettes and alcohol and stuff to you, and you answer them, oh, those are bad too. But why should we have more bad things? You didn't specifically say we should, where your line is when it comes to criminalizing all this stuff. When it comes to the most used illegal drug in America, which is marijuana, do you really see this as people who sell that as poisoning their communities and destroying entire neighborhoods just by selling marijuana?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
data?
there's absolute truth to marijuana being a gateway drug, first off. But secondly, I think that especially when it gets in the hands of children, it leads to long-term impacts to their brain development that fucks them up for life. Right. So yeah, absolutely, they're fucking up the communities if they're selling this to the communities, and by normalizing it, like fucking Seth Rogen does with his fucking stoner movies that kids watch and laugh at and then want to go get high. I think you are doing damage here to children, to people in the United States.
Now,
I think.
all right. So
okay.
the problem is kids getting access to this, right? But when it comes to kids getting, and people have brought up things like sugar, right? I want an answer.
Well, I've been
like
very
McDonald's,
clear,
like McDonald's. Should McDonald's have the Happy Meal?
I think you're like pretty new to the panel stuff. So yeah, I've been pretty clear. I don't think that McDonald's should be able to advertise at all, right? If they're going to have that, I think we should have way more strict health standards with regards to the kind of food that we allow them to sell. Them and other organizations. I think that we have a fucking huge obesity epidemic in the United States, and I don't think all of it's on these corporations. I think that there should some fucking responsibility that needs to be put on the individual, on the parents especially, that are feeding their children the shit, getting them addicted to it as children, and it becomes a habit lifelong that fucks them up, costs us a ton in medical bills, and destroys their lives. Like it's really strange, right? That we have fucking was it like obesity related deaths, or like the top of the list of like the reasons people die in the United States every year, and we're just saying like, hey, yeah, people are gonna do what they're gonna do, totally ignoring the fact that these people are people that are being advertised to from the moment they're fucking born that you should go out and buy McDonald's because it's gonna make you happy, even if you're a fucking fat ass. Right, like it's ridiculous. Right? We need to acknowledge that there is an impact that these companies have on the culture, and we have an interest in making sure that impact is not negative. It's not detrimental.
Doobie, I think you make good points, and I would agree that like anything should be limited. You shouldn't be able to sell drugs to kids for sure. You shouldn't. Currently, don't allow people to sell cigarettes or alcohol to kids. There probably should be more limits when it comes to junk food, specifically to children. But I think, we've established these age gates because we have this like common sense idea that, while we don't want kids exposed to things like pornography or gambling or, alcohol or, this stuff, because that's bad for them. When you become an adult, you are able to like access pornography. I'm curious, would you ban pornography as well?
I'd ban most forms of pornography in their current state. Yeah.
Okay.
Bare
All
minimum,
right.
I'd make it much harder to access pornography. I think that we're way too accepting of the fact that children are watching porn in this fucking country.
I agree. What about
Way too
adults?
accepting of
Though?
that fact.
Adults.
Hold on. Adult. Okay, their detrimental impacts of watching porn as an adult too. But I think just the impact that porn has on the culture is negative. I think it's really bad. I think it leads to a lot of really negative outcomes for men and women who watch this shit. A lot of really negative shit within the culture, i.e., the fixation on jailbait and fucking barely legal 18-year-old high school girl gets fucked in the ass. The violence in porn. I can go on and on and on. It's really bad.
Let's go to our friend.
He will enforce his morals and values with violence and damn the unintended consequences.
That's what having a state is, okay? And I know you don't like the state. I do like the state. I'm totally in favor of imposing my morality on people.
This is like authoritarianism.
We're gonna go to our friend Aiko,
and then talk about consequences. Is that consequentialism?
I said the unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Actions. That's a critique of consequentialism.
Okay. All right.
Right? It's because one doesn't have perfect knowledge of the consequences.
So I'd love to talk about that at some point, but I do want to suggest that what I heard coming from Doobie was a distinction, like on the McDonald's stuff, for instance, on not being able to advertise. That's a restriction on the seller. I didn't hear Doobie say anything about restricting people from eating that kind of food or eating unhealthy food. Really more restrictions on people who are supplying that unhealthy food, which is precisely what the Oregon law does, right? It talks about it decriminalizes consumption or simple possession in small amounts. It continues to make illegal the selling of this sort of thing. So if Doobie's willing to make that distinction between selling and possessing, or selling and buying, or selling and consuming, then why can't we make that same distinction when it comes to drugs? And the second point I would just make is that out of everything that Doobie said about what's wrong with this, specifically addressing what's wrong with the Oregon law, the only one that makes sense to me, or that addresses the law specifically, is that there should be mandatory rehab. Which is what they do in Portugal, and if that's like a way in which we can like modify this, like if that makes Doobie a little bit happier, then okay. But
I'd be happier if it was mandatory rehab plus they need to out their drug dealer.
Right, okay. But everything else that you suggested is something that already exists under the Oregon law, right? It's already illegal to sell. They didn't change the penalties for dealing drugs. The only thing that's
should be much harsher.
Right, sure, but it wasn't harsh. Like it wasn't any harsher than it is now before this law happened. So that's not an objection to this specific Oregon law. You're just making an objection to the way like drug laws are currently exist in the United States, that they're not harsh enough. Which,
this is stupid economic theory.
So wait. So real quick. So what this law inadvertently did is, your small dealer, right? He can now claim that he's going to personally use those drugs. All he has to do is just be really quick about distributing the drugs he has on him, and now he can keep a small sample size on him, and he's good. And so now the police can't arrest him. I literally before this sat down and I listened to this police chief in Portland literally talk about his problems, and he's like, I find the seller, but I can't do anything to the seller because he sold everything already. I know he sells, but he knows as long as he gets rid of his supply before I get to him, he can do whatever. He can go off scot-free because he has a small bit. I don't know if he's actually using or just here like sharing or whatever. He said, I can't do anything. All I can do is attempt to write him a ticket, but I'm no longer allowed to detain this person.
What you do is you use children as runners, right? So like what you do is you get a couple of kids in the neighborhood with like a bicycle and a
It's not.
backpack,
It's not
and you
even.
just get him
It's
to
not even
run to
about
the drug
It's not even
dealers.
about the children. It's not even about the children. He's literally finding the adult responsible.
No.
Can't do shit.
No, I'm saying that's how they get around it, right? Is that like an adult will have a small amount of drugs to sell, and then a kid with like a backpack will just constantly run from dealer to dealer to dealer in the gang and just like re-up them like every hour so that they don't have to worry.
Don't give them strategies.
And so look, and you're looking in
They do this shit.
Yeah, but in headcanon, yeah, sure, that's what he did. But in this scenario, he literally just sold all of it. He sold all of it himself. The guy sold it all himself, and they can't do shit
good
to him.
shit. Yeah.
No. But I mean, sure. It's great. Sure, it's great shit. But that doesn't mean he should be allowed to do. He should be allowed to do it.
So
You know what I'm saying?
I feel like
these laws, it's a bit too loose and allows the seller
So
to,
we can.
to fake it like he's a user, but he's not.
I
That's
would
what I was
like
describing, but yeah.
I'll go to Wick next, but like I'm actually quite curious for the people who are more supportive of these laws. Do you think that like what the thing that Smooth is describing, and I'll take his word for it, that this is an issue.
Yeah, there are.
Like, do you think that like
Yes.
there that needs to be addressed? That can be addressed, or like, what are your thoughts on this? I'll go ahead.
Yeah,
and
I don't
Wick.
think it's an unsolvable problem by any means. Like, I'm not an expert at the legal necessities going into fixing some of these things. Like, I don't have a specific answer for you, but I can imagine that there is one. This is not an insurmountable obstacle. When we talk about like using the legislative system in order to kind of reduce harm to communities and reduce harm in the most effective way possible. Obviously, there are sometimes unintended consequences with laws. I said in my opening statement that there are some confounding variables when it came to Portland's adoption of some of these laws, and it's very possible that some specific loopholes exist that need to be closed. I could stipulate to that all day. But
He's,
when
like,
it comes
improperly
down to
using
the whole
term confounding
concept,
variables,
right,
because
of
I used
using the
term.
state to enforce morality, right?
This is weird.
Well, this can go down some really bad roads really quickly. At the end of the day, we have to allow
Correct.
people.
We
Have
wait,
to
so,
just
so
let
there's
me
no rules?
finish. Let me finish, and then you can ask your question. I'm very curious
Yeah,
what
go
your
ahead.
question is. But there are obviously like my train of thought. No, it's okay. Ask me your question, maybe I'll get it back. Please.
Oh, okay. So my question to you is, if the state is not enforcing morals, right? We don't have a moral police. Who's making the
All
rules?
police are moral
then?
police. It's just
What?
what morals they enforce. All
So
police are
just-
moral police to an extent. Go on.
Huh?
All police
saying
are
all-
moral police to an extent. Go on, please.
Yeah. So what I'm asking you is, what is the left and right? Who's setting it? If the state isn't setting it, like we're not putting forth representatives to make the rules for us, right? Who's making the rules and enforcing them?
Like, are you asking me who should be or who is?
Yeah, who should
Okay,
be?
who should be? Yeah, I think
Private
democracy is
property
the way.
owner.
Whoa. I think democracy is the way to go in these situations. And I think that when it comes to most of these questions we have, that the people who live in a community should be able to decide what rules that this community has. Now, again, we get into situations of basic human rights that I don't think should be democratic at all. I think you shouldn't be able to vote to enslave certain people, right? I think that would be something I would take off the table, democratically speaking. But when it comes to like drugs and what a community is willing to allow, I think that, again, allowing communities to vote on these things is the way to go. Now, when it comes to these enforcement of this of harms and things like that, like fast food, and allowing sugar and allowing alcohol and allowing cigarettes and allowing these types of activities where you consume them and you aren't necessarily doing harm to the rest of the community, even though, yes, I know that certain markets get set up, certain things happen which do affect the community at all. But I think we need to allow bad outcomes, right? I think we need to allow choice to engage in things that will lead to bad outcomes for you personally. People need to be able to be free, right, to choose something that will negatively impact, like to gamble, right? Are you against gambling? Would you say
So-
gambling shouldn't be allowed?
So are people not making decisions today? Like, are people not able to decide to do bad things and getting bad outcomes today? Is that a
If
thing
you
that's not
wanted to
going on in
drink, if you
society?
wanted to use some LSD, right? Or if, well, let's do a harder drug. If for whatever reason you decided you wanted to use these harder drugs, I think you're
Right.
stupid, right? I think you're stupid for it, and you're a dumbass. But I think that the added pressures of the state being able to lock you away for doing that, I think is manifestly unjust.
Oh, Wick, I agree that people should be able to make bad decisions, right? But I think the bad decision that I'd favor them making is to do the illegal thing and get put in a cage for hurting the community. Right? If they want it, they can do it. They can make that decision. But there are consequences for some decisions, like we have in all U.S.
Let me
I
let me,
would want
let
to
me
make.
get in
I
here
would
for a
want to make
second.
a real. I just want to make a real quick distinction. Like, I'm not for putting those people in jail. I'm the whole time I've been saying, let's put them in a different program. Like, still get them. You still process them, but then you put them in rehab.
Well, that's
instead
what
of
the
jail.
as I understand it.
let
That's,
Scott. Let's Scott
So
go.
And it's
the
mandatory.
problem is like you have to have a basic understanding of economics to understand how these things work, right? And so there's no distinction between capital and commodity, right? Capital, one man's capital is another man's commodity, and vice versa, right? Like the capitalist, invests something, for time so that individuals can get commodities now, they purchase it, etc. So what you're talking about is a supply and demand equation. Now, the problem is that when you use authoritarian measures to attack one side of the equation, you don't stop the market. You can't stop a market by stopping one supply, by just stopping the supply, because the demand demands supply, right? So if you want to use authoritarian tactics as a means of actually stopping drugs fully, there's only one answer. I would say it's an immoral answer, but there's only one answer, which is that you have to ensure the demand is destroyed. Now, how do you ensure that the demand is destroyed? Well, one way to do that, right, is to change the culture. It's a perfectly acceptable way of limiting the demand, but it doesn't get rid of the demand, right? So the only way you actually stop the demand is you have to ensure that no one uses drugs. You can't just go after the hardcore drug addicts. You can't just go after the pregnant mom that is caught in a getting pulled over with fucking heroin in her seat. And you can't just stop the drug dealers. You have to stop them all. And the only way you stop them all is with an extremely authoritarian police state that is a dystopian fucking movie where every cop is involved in every part of your life and making sure that you don't do this. If you're not willing to go that far, you're just creating more problems and
That's so
unintended
fucking
consequences.
ridiculous.
What? Yeah.
Hold on. Do you think that we'd have a similar issue with making other things illegal, like child porn, for example?
Absolutely. You have to go after the people that use child porn. You cannot just go after the supply of child porn, because if you don't go after the demand,
so you need to take care of the demand, right? So
that utilize it, then you're not going to stop child porn.
Yeah, okay, but
they do go after users.
Yeah, they do go after the users, and I'm talking about going after the user. And I think we're all proposing that the user should be gone after.
Well, not all of us.
Yeah, so that mom driving down the road with the kid in the car and some meth in her fucking purse, whatever.
Now you're just moving the goalposts and lying about what your previous arguments were.
No, I think that's very clear, right? So first time offense, mandatory rehab.
It's
after
very clear
that
you're lying.
Right? Hold on, first time offense, mandatory rehab, and you need to out your fucking dealer. After that, right, you no longer get to use the excuse of I'm poor or I'm depressed or I'm addicted, because we spent money to put you through mandatory rehab, right? So after you've done this, if you keep fucking up like this, then yeah, you do go in a cage.
Okay, so
what about like Portugal does, like, if you not only do they have mandatory rehab like Doobie said, but also if you have multiple infractions, you've been caught with these drugs multiple times, then at that point criminalization is back on the table for those.
But that's not stopping demand. That's just an attempt at limiting demand for people that are severe abusers.
How do you stop the demand for child
But
porn?
weren't y'all saying Portugal is working? Yes.
Portugal is working, yes.
How do you stop the demand for child porn?
But Portugal is not. Oregon is going a step further than what.
And other than banning anime, like how do you stop the demand for child porn?
Other than banning anime. That's great.
That's step one. Okay, you have to get rid of the anime if you want to go ahead and anything
Demon Slayer,
else.
man.
You know what? I'm for this.
There is no world. There is no utopic world where you get rid of all of these things at all times, unless, right? Like so the utopia that like everything will be great and it'll all go away is bullshit. If anybody gives you that argument, right? The only way that you 100% stop the demand for child porn is with an authoritarian police state that checks every VHS, checks every DVD, monitors every single person's internet activity, etc., to the point where it is impossible for people to have the privacy that would allow them to do things that you don't want them to do. That's the only way to actually stop it.
Yeah, of course. So given that, you know, I think all of us here dislike child porn. I think there's some anime watchers here, so maybe they're on the fence. But I think most of us here dislike child porn. So, but we'd also that, hey, even though we dislike child porn, we probably don't want the government inspecting every movie that we watch to make sure it's not child porn before we stick it into our VCR or whatever the fuck, right? So, yeah, we have to accept that it's not going to be perfect, but you can get as close to perfect as reasonably possible. And I think what I propose is pretty reasonable.
So,
yeah, except first, you're making a consequentialist argument. Everyone here has been.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not an
ideologue.
ideologue.
In the realm of consequences,
True.
right? So because we're in the realm of consequences, let's compare these two things consequentially. What is the consequences of taking away fathers who also happen to be avid viewers of child porn or producers? Well, less child abuse. That's the consequence. But when you're talking about over policing communities, creating gangs, and taking away fathers from people who are just trying to make money off of something that is not an inherently wrong thing, because a person can choose as an adult to engage in drugs perfectly fine, perfectly healthy, perfectly reasonable all of the time.
No, I don't think that's true.
Have done.
You just said it's not like there's no like inherent damage.
Nothing but good outcomes from psilocybin. There are plenty of people whose lives have been
allegedly
made better by the drug psilocybin, right? So the idea.
Yeah, there are plenty of people who say that their lives are made better by raping a woman. That is
the case of the drug that people had a good outcome from. How many people have died of overdoses from heroin? How many people have died from overdoses of cocaine? How many people have died from overdoses of meth? How many people have died from overdoses of fentanyl? Like, you can't just, oh yeah, this really bad thing that, oh my God, fentanyl. If you just open the trunk of a car that has fentanyl in there, you're probably gonna go into fucking shock and die.
Why do we have fentanyl overdoses? Why is fentanyl the number 2 cause of death in America for anyone aged 18 to 45? Why is fentanyl so popular?
It's the drug of choice now. That's what they're selling now.
It is not the drug of choice. The reason that fentanyl is killing so many people is because people think they're purchasing opioids that don't have fentanyl in them, and they have been cut. It is the black market and the government and the war on drugs that is killing people with fentanyl.
If you ask me why I said that, it's because that's the one that they're choosing to traffic large quantities of. They've been doing it.
But it's because of the war on drugs.
They started doing it well before we started seeing a problem. If you go look at well, damn, no, y'all wouldn't be privy to that information. But look, all I'm gonna tell you is large quantities of
we don't watch anime. Sorry.
No. It's not about anime. It's about my job, dumbass. You wouldn't be privy to this information. But all I'm telling you is large quantities since 2018 of fentanyl were being found. Large quantities.
Yeah, that doesn't answer the question.
Let's go to
what if that's a good job?
Sorry. I think we got it right. Like I just want to, because we have very limited time.
Yeah, okay,
go ahead. Back to it.
I guess I'm curious why your job involves large quantities of fentanyl, but that's just a question. Not really a question for Doobie, but all right. The look you gave is interesting. But one of the things that always struck me about this conversation in particular, that I think makes it unique when it comes to moral discussions or discussions about what the law should be, is, and this was, I think, really hammered home during the Democratic primary when Tulsi Gabbard basically, I think, destroyed Kamala Harris's chances of the presidency by pointing out that the same person who's advocating for for these incredibly harsh sentences on drug users during her time as a prosecutor. Also used drugs, right? This doesn't seem to happen with other kinds of things, right? You don't have people who kind of have this weird cognitive dissonance of like, you know, if you're a murderer, I mean, you probably don't want to like go to prison because
that's not true. Like, look at how
Hillary
many
Clinton.
look at how many people advocate for harsh laws and penalties for you know, child porn, and they get caught with child porn, or for you know, homosexual relations.
Right, sure, but they don't admit it. I think they don't hold this contrary position where they admit to having done it, but then they also want to increase the penalties.
Okay, yeah, they get caught. Gotcha.
Right, yeah, so they get caught. Right, the difference here is you have people who, you know, even like George Bush, right? Who, like, yeah, like I did it, but I still want people to go be put in a cage for doing it. And to me, whenever I hear that, whenever I hear anybody say, well, you know, people should be put in a cage for doing it, but I have done it. To me, what I'm hearing is, aren't you saying that you belong in a cage? Aren't you saying?
Are you wondering if I've done drugs?
Have you ever done any drugs?
No.
You've never touched any drugs in your life?
Never. Well, hold on. I've touched drugs. In high school, some guy tried to get me to hold his weed, and I punched him in the face. But that was it.
Okay,
I've never
sure.
done drugs. I've never been interested in it.
So Doobie, you may be pure here. Okay, so maybe this isn't against you, but I think for most Americans and for probably most people who are against or in favor of criminalizing drug use or drug possession, I do think that they should look inwards and think, wow, do I belong in a cage just because I'm lucky enough to not get caught? Is that really how morality should be decided? Is that really how our law should exist, where, you know, perfectly good people are like,
why are you assuming
I deserve to go in a
so many of
cage?
these people are like drug users?
Statistically, most Americans have tried marijuana once in their life.
Okay, so this is why earlier we were making a distinction, right? So first time if you're that idiot that's doing marijuana, right, casually or whatever with your friend, and you get caught, hey, this is your chance to straighten the fuck up and not do it again, right? So yeah, that person wouldn't belong in a cage. That person would get a chance to
mandatory rehab.
Absolutely, yeah. And then
how is that not incarceration?
Beyond that, well, no, I wouldn't call that incarceration. But sure, if you want to call it that, sure, go for it. I just, the way that I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about like mandatory fucking AAA ratings or
why would you let them
marijuana?
Why would you not put them in jail the first time? Because if you don't put them in jail the first time, you're incentivizing the drugs.
Because I think we need to acknowledge that we live in a culture that normalizes this kind of shit. And given that most of you guys aren't cool enough to agree that we shouldn't allow people to normalize drug use in media, in movies, TV, video games, etc.
Or alcohol.
We need to acknowledge that these people are growing up in a culture, in a schizophrenic culture that is on one hand saying, hey, it's cool to do these things, but on the other hand, hey, if you do these things and you get caught, we're going to arrest you. Right? It's schizophrenic as fuck, right? So we're gonna say that, hey, yeah, if you get caught the first time, right, there's a chance to correct your behavior, to correct yourself. Beyond that, you're fucked.
Yeah, but you seem to have this weird line for like hard drugs that you don't apply to things like alcohol, cigarettes, things like that. Well, I mean, look at any movie. Even
do you think the consequences of like meth are comparable to like fucking coffee creamer with sugar in it?
No, but I do think they're comparable.
Well, then why are you trying to
compare?
You're right.
Obesity kills more people.
Sugar kills way more people.
I do think they're
alcohol kills more people because it's legal and it's normalized within the culture. And I agree that shouldn't be the case. I think I'd be in favor of making alcohol legal over time. Absolutely. But given that it's currently legal and it's so easily accessed and it's so normalized in the culture, we'd expect it to kill more people because so many more people are using it.
Have you drank alcohol before,
Doobie? I've heard you so many times rail against getting rid of guns in America, and my question to you is, why do you want Tommy guns back on the streets?
Hey, rail against getting rid. I'm in favor of getting rid of guns. When did you hear me rail against getting rid of guns?
I may have misspoke, but why do you want Tommy guns back on the streets, right?
Yeah, I agree that, hey, if we clamp down on these hedonistic industries, there will be some pushback from the darker elements of society. What you do with that is you don't give in to them. You say, hey, I'm afraid of your Tommy gun, so yeah, sell your fucking poison into my community. You say, fuck you, and you shoot that person or you put them in a cage. Simple.
Okay.
So you said you drank alcohol before?
Prohibition worked so well.
we run out of time.
The rate of
on
alcohol
this
use went down a
particular
lot during
topic.
Prohibition.
But I want Tommy guns back on the streets because they're pretty fucking cool, right? I think that's pretty badass. I think that's Tommy guns go. But yeah, okay. Thanks all for this. We're gonna continue on to our second topic. Before then, guys, if you've been enjoying this content, hit that follow button. This has been actually a really good talk. This is a really spirited discussion here. And
you didn't have
yeah,
fanatic.
I've known my friend Doobie for quite a while. He has been absolutely consistent on this. Like I keep every time I hear it, I'm like, does he really feel this way? He seems to.
This is
right?
what happens
He
when you
seems
don't
to.
invite fanatic.
And I appreciate him, giving his opinion, being the
Give a
bad
good
guy
spirited
here,
discussion.
and smooth, because he also had contrarian points to say here. So thank you all. If you're enjoying this content, hit that follow button, make sure notifications on, so you know I'm going live. I do this all the time, especially for social chat, for social media. We got Twitter, Discord, where we have all our talks, right? Be a part of our Discord. We'd love to have you. TikTok, and YouTube. Like, comment, and subscribe. In case you miss anything, that's where the VODs are at. All right, so we are going to go to our next topic. And I hope to have I hope this can be pretty deep. I hope so. Either that or everyone's just gonna fucking agree. So we'll find out. Recently, there has been much discussion about Nia Long's husband
Doka got
cheating
deep.
on. What?
Huh?
Doka got deep.
Oh, I see. I got it. He's doing it.
Wow.
All right.
Okay.
Anyway, congratulations for you. God. Okay. Topic 2. Recently, there has been much discussion about Nia Long's husband cheating on her. Is it ever acceptable to cheat on your spouse? Cheating involves lying and breaking
You
whatever
win
trust
some,
is
you
within
lose
that
some,
relationship.
boys.
What circumstances would that make sense? Or is there no situation short of abuse that this would ever be an act that wouldn't be shameful? Okay, so in case you don't know who Nia Long is, she's an actress from way back. I guess she still acts. I don't know. But she is married to a NBA coach, and this guy has been accused of cheating. And from what I understand, cheating with someone on his staff, like in the NBA, on the NBA team. Yeah. So in any case, and people have been wondering, like, how could this happen, especially to a person as beautiful as her? And yeah, I'm thinking from the perspective of the cheater, and wondering, like, could there be a set of circumstances where this, it really does make sense, something that we could all maybe accept, that you're in some sort of circumstance, and yeah, go ahead and do this, right? Maybe it's not too bad for you. So let's discuss it. We'll start with our friend Lactoid.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. I mean, when you think, there's some perspectives from this, right? If you think about it from a consequentialist point of view, right? As long as they don't find out, there's no harm, and you're maximizing pleasure. So this would be a good idea, right? No, it's not a good idea to cheat on your spouse. It's lying. And if anybody who's dated me is watching this, I've never cheated on you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Scott, please.
Yeah, so this is one of the few times you have a topic that doesn't involve necessarily aggression, which is where I tend to revert to being a virtue ethicist. I think it's likely morally wrong to lie, to engage in behavior that you said that you wouldn't, to defraud people of the trusting relationship that you had. Now, do people want to engage in a poly relationship or something, or an open relationship? I don't consider that per se cheating, right? I just consider that two idiots that don't know how to have a healthy relationship. But this is very clearly, at least in this specific case, I mean, like, obviously we only have like rumors at this point, like that he was fucking the travel agent, possibly other people. There's also the fact that, like, the woman that was the travel agent likely brought Nia Long to move to Boston, even though he knew the investigation was started in July and that this would eventually get public, and he's house hunting with her Like, and it doesn't seem like she knew that this was going on. So like this dude is just like grade A piece of shit if like the reporting thus far is to be trusted. And I mean, like, cheaters usually tend to be pieces of shit. So if you want to, I mean, like if you know someone that cheated on other people, that's pretty much a red flag that you should never talk to them or deal with them or be friends with them. If someone says like, hey, I cheated on my boyfriend, it was rough, and be like, oh, well, that's probably because you're a fucking hoe. I don't feel like dealing with you. Or if it's a dude, then like you're a fucking a piece of shit in some other regard. What's some good gendered language I can use to attack him other than hoe? Give me one, chat. Whatever it is. Yeah, so I would say that you're not honoring that commitment. Now, I think marriage is totally different because I think marriage is a legally binding contract. And so when you are in a marriage, unlike Nia Long and God, how the fuck you say his name? Udoka. Unlike them, they were engaged, but they were not married. If they were married, I would say that you violated the contract that you have with that person. And they can demand restitution, lawyers' fees, and half your fucking shit. And I have no problem with that. As much as the conservatives will cringe about no-fault divorces and things like that, this is the violation of the contract. This isn't no fault. Like, you did something, fuck you.
Thank you so much, Wick.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. I think that it can go deep, and I hope it goes deep. I always hope it goes deep on a Prime panel. But I will say, right, at the end of the day, is it ever okay to cheat? It really depends. I would say normally, in 99% of cases, no. But if you are in an abusive relationship or in a relationship you literally are trapped in and there is no escape, right? Like, then I think that it is morally permissible to step outside the bounds, right? Like, if you are in a non-American or Western area where you can't get a divorce, for example, you can't break these contracts under legal means. You are literally trapped with your spouse. Then yes, I think that is permissible. But in most cases, and in most reasonable cases, I think you're a piece of shit if you cheat on your spouse or your significant other. There are other ways. If you no longer want to be with someone, it's fine. Break up with them, right? Before you go out and start sticking your dick where it don't belong. But there you go.
Thank you. We'll go with our friend Igo.
Yeah. So my understanding is that these people have been together for a long time. I think you could consider this a common law marriage, and even if it weren't, if you have a commitment with somebody, unless you like specifically have a prearranged sort of open marriage or an open relationship, that obviously this is breaking an understanding between parties, and I would consider that, of course, to be wrong. But also, I kind of thought when I first saw this, when this was sort of being submitted to me for today's panel, I kind of thought there would be more to it. Like, I thought maybe we were going to talk about, is it wrong if you have the power relationship over a staffer or something like that? Is it wrong to start a relationship with them then? Or I thought maybe there was some sort of discipline that came from the team, and we were going to question whether or not it was right to discipline him for the thing that was happening. Or, I mean, there are a lot of sort of other elements to this that I thought would be in question. If we're really just asking whether it's okay to cheat on somebody, like literally like have an affair with somebody else and not tell your spouse, aside from one of those like rare exceptions that Wick was talking about. Yeah, I mean, to me, it doesn't seem like there's it's all that controversial to say, yeah, this is obviously morally and ethically wrong.
We can
There's like the radical
feminists
feminists
as well,
where's the radical feminists to be like,
us.
women can
Let's go to our
cheat
friend
because
Smith.
abuse?
Okay, so he had a consent. So the mass consensus is he had a consensual relationship with Boston's VP of Finance wife, right? The VP of Finance's wife. That's why this got so out of hand and got so just out of pocket. It's him having sex with her. That's what led to this escalation and why he's getting the punishment that he is. Is it okay to cheat? Absolutely not. But is this probably commonplace in the NBA? Probably so. Like, I've heard many other condomless and talk show hosts say this is commonplace. Even other NBA players was like, yeah, this isn't too out of pocket for me to see. So for him getting the, oh, we're gonna ban you from your job for a year, if it was really that bad, fire him. Just straight up, if it's really that bad, fire him. If not, just let it go. But that VP had something to prove, and he's upset. But I don't agree with the fact that if in fact there is another party involved, they should have gotten suspended as well. Now to go back to your question, is cheating okay? Cheating is not okay. Whether you're cheating on a verbal commitment or a actual like contractualized marriage commitment with the state or whatever, like none of that is okay. Now, are there situations where it's just like, oh shit, that happened? Like, yeah. Sometimes you find some people genuinely find it's super rare. Some people genuinely find themselves in an unfortunate position of having cheated on their spouse. Not saying that they cheated and went all the way like, yo, I had sex with this other person, but maybe they did something that's not as good. And those that scale of cheating, you know what I'm saying? Like we have to like what is too bad? What is a forgivable offense?
And finally, our friend DB.
So full disclosure, I am currently in a very deeply loving relationship, which in reality just means that I'm like deep in the grip of a chemical cocktail that's attempting to attach me to my girlfriend. So when I was thinking about this, I had to like mentally drag myself out of that addiction, out of that mental prison, this mental chemical prison, and think about it like with a clear mind. Think about it like I used to before I became attached to this person. And I think that, so when I was single, not even just single, actually, when I was before this person, I had like a philosophy that I borrowed from like Barbershop. You guys ever seen the movie Barbershop, the first one?
Yep.
Yes.
There's a fuckboy in that movie who has this great line, and he says, when I'm with you, I'm with you, and when I'm not, I'm not. Right? And for me, for a very long time...
That's the line right there. That's the
Yeah.
line right there.
Yeah, for me, for a very long time, that's the way I operated. Right? Hey, when I'm with you, I'm with you. When I'm not, I'm not. I'm going to exercise other options. Abso-fucking-lutely. Right? And the reason I'd keep that for my partner, right, isn't because like it's because I don't want to hurt them. Right? It feels bad to hurt somebody. But does that mean that I don't want to hurt them enough to just totally avoid all the other pussy that's available to me? Fuck no. Right? I'm going to fuck other people. I'm going to try to avoid you finding out about it because I don't want to hurt your feelings. But beyond that, I think that like it's fine for people to exercise options. And if you exercise an option, you dip into some pussy and it's a little too weird for you, or you're not that attached to it, so you go back to your partner. So long as they don't find out about it, no harm, no foul. I think that like, you know, it's, so far as I know, there's no like astral projection thing that happens, right? Where you're like, the state of your dick slipping into another vagina is stuck in front of your partner's face. Now she's traumatized forever. She doesn't find out about it. She doesn't find out about it, right? And it just never happened to her. So like, what's the issue? And I to be clear, I have cheated on partners before. The first time was like I was 17 years old. Right, and my girlfriend never ever found out about it. No harm, no foul. She's totally fine. I got to stick my dick.
Well, now she did.
Yeah, she's
well,
tuned
we
into
broke
this
up when I was
thing,
24. Okay, it's fine. It's fine.
I have two thoughts here, right? So the first thought, I guess, to Smooth's point is that's a good question. Is cheating only sexual? Like, can you cheat in other ways? Can you cheat on your spouse or cheat on your significant other and not ever have sex with someone else? Like, I think you can. I think there are ways to violate the whatever agreement you happen to have that don't involve sexuality. But the key here is the agreement that you have. You can't cheat on someone if you haven't made this agreement. And I've had this situation before where I've been accused of cheating, and I'm like, yo, we were never even dating. We were never even anything. You just made some assumptions that we never talked about, and that's on you, my friend, not on me. So that is an issue there. But to address Doobie's point here, like, I think that no, even if no one ever finds out about it, it does, I think, cause issues, or the
For
risk
who?
there, the risk there of it causing issues is
Yeah,
enough
if you're sloppy
for
about
us
it,
to
sure.
want to just not do it at all.
No, that's
right?
not true. I mean, if you're like very risk averse, sure, or if you really, really, really care about the relationship you're in, sure. But if not, right? If it's just hey, you have a girlfriend and you like her, but not enough to not to fuck other people, so long as she doesn't find out about it, I really don't see like what the damage is.
But you can never
What-
ensure
what-
that, right? You can never ensure.
Yeah, of course, it's a
that-
risk. Of course, you need to be
So I
okay
would
with the risk
say-
that hey, she's gonna find out and dump you at some point,
I would
or
say
if she
that
won't, she'll be okay with it.
I would say that we live in a culture, as Doobie said, right? And that this is a degeneracy that has a lot of negative outcomes, breaks apart families, causes, more of that fatherlessness, like I talked about, and, issues like that. And so whatever Doobie says we do to drug dealers, I think we should do to cheaters as well, just to be consistent here about our consequential analysis of the breakdown
Wouldn't have a
of society.
population.
I'm saying,
Wouldn't have a
like,
population.
I'm just saying, like, if Doobie wants to put, drug dealers in prison and execute them for multiple offenses, like, just, hey, man, just be consistent about the degradation of society from cheaters. And, we can live in your fascistic state.
And you also damage
85%
yourself,
of
right?
people are gone.
You also damage yourself when, like, you saying that you've done this, right? Like, other people listening, their opinion of you might go
There
down.
are people that
why would I
aren't
give
going
a-
to
why would I
believe
give
that
a
this
fuck?
is a joke,
because
right?
we live
Okay,
in
any of the women in the audience
That's
right
the
now
best
hear me
thing
saying
about
that I
it.
would cheat on them. Hold on, if they hear me say that I would cheat on them, if they met me, I'd be able to fuck them within like 30 minutes. 100%.
It's not just women, however. It's men too. It's people who you want to enter a contract with, like you want to enter an agreement
They'd be
with.
thinking about my dick in them within like 5 minutes of meeting me.
Yeah,
100%.
okay,
Bro, I
sure.
respect
The confidence.
I respect the balls on you.
Doopie's a handsome guy, so I don't know.
Perhaps,
Maybe, do it.
but
I
that's
don't know.
beside
Go ahead.
that's beside the point, right? That I'm trying to make here. That I'm trying to make is when people know that you are willing to just, if you
Yeah, we
think
know-
that some
we know
they
Newly
you won't
Awakened.
get caught being dishonest,
That's what happens when you have no women on the panel.
people aren't going to trust you, right? This hurts you.
It pushes
This
back
hurts
on
your
that shit.
reputation. This hurts your how it affects how people treat you going forward. If they know that you cannot be trusted, right? You simply cannot be trusted. It has an effect. It does harm, right?
I can be trusted
Quick
to exercise
question.
my options if they're available to me.
Wait, I have a question for you.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
Okay, let's go to our friend.
Yeah.
Arthur.
I'll let you ask your question first. Like,
Yeah. So you said something before that I think is interesting to explore. You said, there are situations in which you've maybe been seeing somebody, and then maybe you see somebody else, and they get upset, and then you say, "Oh, well, we never established those expectations." I'm curious as to what our thoughts are on what kind of actions we take implicitly set expectations. So I know people that they start dating, and then they put themselves as a relationship on Facebook, but they never explicitly sit down and say, like, I'm not going to go have sex with anybody else, but like they are like boyfriend and girlfriend. In that situation, like if the dude or the girl like went out and like screwed around, the other partner would be incredibly upset, even though they didn't explicitly set out those
I'm not here
expectations.
to police someone's feelings, right? If you feel that way, but if you never explicitly, right, set these boundaries, how can you be mad at someone from crossing these boundaries that you have never told them exist?
Right. So but let's say like you call somebody your girlfriend, you're in a relationship, and then you go bang some other girl, and then she comes to you like, I know you're banging Stephanie. And then you say, well, you never told me I couldn't fuck Stephanie.
Yeah, there are obviously some like, if you are talking about, hey, calling them a girlfriend, saying you were in a relationship, there are cultural norms, right, that we can have reasonable expectations for. But I'm not talking about that.
Right.
I'm talking about you go on a couple dates, and then you date someone else, and they're like, hey, I thought we were dating. I'm like, why would you think that? We have never talked about this, right?
Right.
That
So
is what I'm referring to.
this is the difficulty, though, because I know people, and for some reason, disproportionately nurses, who have this understanding for some reason
Fuck nurses. Hate them.
who for some reason have
don't say that. Don't
pajamas,
say
they
that.
worse.
Don't say that. Don't say that. I like to.
Nurses are not heroes. Fuck nurses.
So,
Fuck nurses. No, I love nurses.
so all right.
Nurses.
So
What's with the
Disrespect-
nurse hate? I'm curious.
So
Like,
the-
He's
okay,
got
I
a
love
special
y'all.
hate
Travel
for
to-
nurses. You won't get me started. Fuck 'em.
there's some people, disproportionately nurses, who have this mentality of, well, I'm not taken until there's a ring. Like, I don't see a ring. We hear that from among some kind of, maybe more unscrupulous circles. And then even when they get married, they still cheat. But we do hear that. So, I mean, what would you tell somebody who has the cultural understanding that, hey, until I'm married, I'm banging every guy in the block?
So what I would advise people do is set explicit boundaries when you want to be serious with someone. When you find yourself caring who the other person is sleeping with, it's time to have a talk. It's time to have a talk and set some boundaries and say, hey, this is what I want. This is what I expect. This is what I am willing to offer you. And if you're cool with that, then let's do it. And if you're not cool with that, then that's a problem. Why?
It wouldn't work. It wouldn't have worked for me. Because,
what do you mean work?
I wanted to be able to sleep around, right? But I didn't want them to sleep around. So if I said, hey, I want to sleep around, there are very few women, unless I'm paying all their fucking bills, there are very few women out there who'll be okay with me sleeping around them not sleeping around.
That's a good point.
Right? So instead, I hid it. Right? I would just do it. They wouldn't find out. No harm, no foul.
Well, yeah, you were being dishonest, and I think that's inherently wrong.
Why?
Well, because you lose lack of trust. It damages your position in the community. People can no longer trust.
If I'm being honest with myself, that
meaning.
I care less about my connection with this person.
You may not care about it, and that's fine.
Than I do the possibility that I could put my dick in another vagina now and then. Right? And I understand that, hey, yeah, there's risk attached to this. She might break up with me. And hey, maybe someday I'm going to fall deeply in love with this person and not want to do this anymore. So if I understand all these things, I really don't. If she never finds out, it doesn't seem like she's being harmed. I'm not being harmed. So, what's the issue?
You're a villain, Doobie.
So, Doobie,
You've
the only
defrauded her.
question I would have about that is it then okay if she hides it from you and she also sleeps around? Why not?
Hold on. I'd understand it.
You'll
but
never
I wouldn't be
find
okay
out.
Apply the same logic.
Hold on, wait. To be clear, when I say no,
you're going to find out now
no.
because I'm telling you, Doobie, right
Well,
now,
when I-
every
oh,
woman
God.
you've ever slept with, I slept with
Not
while you were
true.
sleeping.
Oh,
It happened.
Okay,
You can't
wait.
disprove it.
I'm gonna.
It's in your head
okay.
now. It's in your head.
No, it's just.
You're gonna imagine it.
I
Right?
am thinking to be naked, but that happens all the time. It's not a big deal. So Aiko, I think that when I say no, right, I don't mean that I wouldn't understand it, right, or that I wouldn't I wouldn't be agree that they're just doing what I did, right? Of course it's hypocritical for me to be upset about it, but the fact that I've been fucking somebody or kissing somebody who's had her lips on another dick, it would be fucking disgusting, unforgivable. I would fucking burn this person alive, hypothetically, in Minecraft, right? This would not be something I could live with, right? They would need to be cut out entirely. I would destroy them. I would destroy them in every way that I could without
Dick's
breaking
been
the
in
law.
another woman.
So Doobie. The sad reality is, okay, unless you're the first man that's been with that woman, everybody's kissed the girl after she.
This is why everybody knows. This is why everybody knows. The highest value woman. The highest value woman is a virgin.
You push it to the far back of your
Yeah, you
mind. Okay, you push it to the far back of your mind, but it's a thing. Okay, it's a thing. It's there. Okay,
Yeah, I know.
Just the same way as when she sleeps with you, she's sleeping with whoever you slept
Right,
with
and
last.
there's a supply and demand issue.
It's just a part of it's a part of the ecosystem that nobody likes to think about.
Yeah, there's
It's
a
true.
supply and demand issue when it comes to this
Smooth is
because-
1,000,000,000% correct.
Now we can talk about supply and demand. What the fuck?
Yeah, because look, you've got obviously there's roughly 50%
The sexual
of the
marketplace.
population is men and 50%
Couldn't
women.
do it with
right?
drugs, but
So that means anytime you have a man who sleeps with 3 women, by definition, then there's a woman who sleeps with 3 men. That's just how the numbers work out. Unless you have a tremendous number of incels out in the community.
There are.
you
There
do
are.
actually.
Yeah, there
There
You
are.
do actually. And then you actually have a
majority
small
of men.
percentage of men that are having sex with a very large amount of women.
No, the sexual
You have a
marketplace
lot of
is
women
unequal.
who are training women who are pretty ugly, maybe fat. A lot of guys fuck them to get some training. Right?
Okay.
So the amount of people they fucked is going to be super high, even compared to the more
Doobie.
attractive people.
Doobie. At the end of the day, I wouldn't enforce my morality on you, right? I wouldn't do that, right? I wouldn't put you in a cage. for breaking what my moral values here. But I will tell you, right? Like this idea that you can do something and it's okay for you to do it, but it's not okay for your partner to do the exact same thing when you haven't explicitly, right?
Hold on.
Explicitly set those boundaries.
Yes, it's
a
different. First off,
problem.
secondly, hold on. So if she were to catch me cheating, right, and I was very good about not being caught, but if it were to happen, right, I would have 1,000,000,000% understand her trying to stab me in the fucking face. I would understand the anger, right? And I think it's reasonable for her to understand my anger. But I think that given that my genitalia is on the outside and I can clean it thoroughly, right, and I don't need to worry about crevices and whatever. Right, I think it is different.
Well,
If somebody
because
cream pies my girlfriend, if some
hold on,
cream pies my
if you're
girlfriend when
kissing-
I'm not around, and then I eat her out the next day, that's fucking
so
unforgivable, right?
If
Like
you're
it's-
kissing the
if-
lips of someone
if-
who sucked a dick, I mean, it's
Yeah.
easier to clean a dick, so you shouldn't have a problem with that, right? Because she was
Wait,
sucking
hold
that
on.
very clean
The
dick.
issue isn't that the dick isn't clean; it's that the dick was in her mouth, right?
She
And then
was
I'm
sucking
gonna
off the
touch her
STDs.
mouth with my
The-
lips. It's
The
not a
dick
good time.
makes her mouth unclean.
She's gonna breathe on me with her fucking dick breath. That's another guy's dick. I don't want that.
Very, very clean dick breath.
At the end of the day, right? Like, look, this deceit also has unintended consequences when it comes to, like, for example, STDs are a big one. If you or the person who, the other individual, either partner, if they're cheating and things, and an STD gets involved, there are health risks. There are serious,
doesn't wear
life-threatening
condoms.
health risks.
Doobie
That's
doesn't wear
another.
condoms.
That's a
I
problem
fucking
too.
hate condoms.
Unwanted
Oh, you're
pregnancies.
shooting up the club every
like-
time? My man is wild.
Which is why virgin women are the most high value women of all, right? Women who have, if it used to be like for me to have like a sex buddy, right? Like a casual like fuck buddy, whatever. It was like a requirement for me, for that person to promise me in some way that they have not been with another man in at least 6 months, right? Because I don't want some other dude's dick crust in the thing that I'm fucking. But I think that's like totally reasonable, right? But I want to say something, because Smooth, you said this earlier, and I don't think people think about this enough. So if you have a girlfriend, right, that she has fucking crevices that things go into, right? And there's I saw a study about this a while back. I'm pretty sure it's like a meme study, but just like the thought, right, that anytime a man fucks a woman and he comes in her, there's a little part of him in her for fucking ever that is just never going to be taken away. It's always going to be in there, right? That's fucking like, I push this to the back of my mind. I push this to the back of my mind, but the fact that my girlfriend's lips have been on another dick at some point is like, it's fucking, it's in there, right? It's like, and every so often I'm looking at her beautiful lips, and there's like a jab like in the back of my skull, just like, hey, those lips have been on another dick at some point, and you're gonna kiss them later. You're kissing another man's dick, you know, by like in like it's
in proxy.
It's fucking
right?
it's terrible. Right.
So, but doesn't that problem get worse if you're sleeping around with other women, because they've all also had been around another dick at some point?
So Cal,
of course. It's something you need to be aware.
Cal, like real talk, like the odds of you if you slept with that person like that, they probably slept with somebody else like that, and you probably, and it's just this vicious cycle. You can probably multiply by 3 on men and girls side, just statistically speaking, and that's just what you get. What I wanted to ask earlier though was God damn it, I forgot it again. Fuck, leave me alone.
You know what it would be in your mind if you thought about it like Doobie thinks about other people, right? Dick.
Hold on, really quickly. There's another thing I wanted to say that I forgot. There's I don't want to call it a good skit because it's fucking Dan Cook, and I'm sure this joke's been told before, right? But I remember hearing it a very long time ago. I was probably like in high school or something, and he was like, it was about an old couple walking down the road hand in hand, looking happy as fuck, and he sees him. He's like, hey, you know, I want to find love like that someday. I want to find this pure, unconditional, lifelong love. So he asks the guy, now, hey, how did you do it? And the guy just leans over and whispers into his ear, cheat. Fucking cheat, right? I think there's some truth to that. I think that as a man, not exercising your options, not getting to strange pussy once in a while, can be extremely damaging to the relationship, because you're always going to be thinking about it. You're always going to be thinking like, hey, there's a hot girl down the street. Maybe I should break up with this bitch and go fuck her for a while instead. Right, but if you
that's not
if you just
true.
go and fuck her, right, and then come back to the bitch that you're with, it's fine, right? She never finds out.
You're
You get
putting your
the
thought
strange pussy.
process like other people. Like this no, really quick. This idea that everyone constantly, guys especially, this idea that men are just constantly thinking about cheating and constantly
I'm 1
wondering
billion
what's
percent.
out
What are
there.
you talking about?
I don't think that's true, right? Like
You're
not
nuts. I think if
Okay,
a woman's
okay.
nipples within like 2 minutes of meeting her, I'm wondering what
Damn.
color her nipples are. Like less than 2 minutes.
Damn.
Like what?
And but quick question for you, bro. When you're in the store and you see that really hot chick or whatever on aisle 7, you doesn't cross your mind like, damn, I wish I could fuck her. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Look,
I know that
there is I will say this.
happens
There is
with
a substantive
everybody.
difference. There's a substantive difference between imagining someone in a scenario and seriously considering cheating. Right? There's a substantive difference there.
You have to think it first.
Just because
before
you've
you
already
do it.
ordered doesn't mean you can't check out the menu. I believe in that. I understand, right? Like just because you've already placed an order doesn't mean you
Why
can't check out the
restrain
menu.
yourself if you can get away with
Because
it?
self-control is important. I value my
okay, but your
word.
self-control could be in the care that you put into cheating, right? And making
No.
sure that you're going to get away with it.
I value my integrity, right? I value my word that I give to another person,
good.
whoever I happen to be in a relationship with. If I say I won't do something and then I violate that word, that hurts me because I care about how I feel about myself when I'm by myself. And if I am not, one of the values I place on myself, like one of the values I place on myself, one of my internal kind of value system here is that if I say something, I mean it, right? Genuineness, honesty. And I'm not perfect at it. Obviously, no one is. But I feel bad about myself when I violate these things. And I think that's a net good, both personally and society. I think guilt has a value here.
Doobie, can I ask you a quick hypothetical question?
Sure, of course you can, Lacto.
So, here's what stops me. Let's say you cheat on your spouse and you get HIV, and you give HIV to your spouse and she dies. You think you've done anything wrong? Like, do you think that she has been injured by your actions?
Yes, I think so. Of course. Yeah, because
you should be like charged, because with like some kind of negligent homicide or something.
You told her
Did
I know that I had HIV?
No, you specifically told her you would not screw around on her. You screwed around on her without a condom, as you've already said, with the knowledge that you might get this disease, and then you gave it to her and she dies. Like, do you think at that point there should be some kind of criminal charge?
I don't think. I think if I didn't know about it, no. If I didn't know that, I think that because when I have sex with somebody, I'm going to ask them if they've been tested, if they have anything, typically, right? And if this person said no to me, then really the fault is theirs. Because they
what if they don't know? What if they don't know and they don't know?
Well, then then shit happens. Then it's nobody's fault. They didn't know. I didn't know. My girlfriend didn't know. Shit happened.
So what is the law on this?
Well, you're probably not going to get charged with that. I know there's like if you intentionally.
California, you can intentionally do it, and it's like a misdemeanor.
Well, it's a misdemeanor, but in most places, if you intentionally infect somebody with HIV, it's a felony, and if you intentionally infect people, but intentionally is very if you don't know you have something, it's very, very difficult case to say that you intentionally infected somebody. I guess I'm talking more about the moral issue of I think risk matters here, right? Just because I'm a terrible shot doesn't mean I can just start taking pot shots at you. Because even if I miss 99 of them, there's that, if I'm intentionally engaging in a risky behavior that's putting your life in jeopardy without your consent.
Doobie, I have a question. So let's say I'm a drug dealer and I sell heroin only to adults that promise me that they're going to use it for themselves and use it responsibly. But I didn't know that this heroin was laced with fentanyl. And then I give it to someone and then they OD from the fentanyl. I didn't know, right? And the guy that I got it from, he didn't know either, right? He got it from another source that knew and lied to him about it. Why is that something that should be punishable potentially by execution, but something that you think is perfectly fine both morally and legally under your system?
I think that if you're engaging in the illicit drug industry whatsoever, is reporting this industry, knowing that a part of that industry is fentanyl dealing, is fentanyl manufacturing, is people getting addicted and overdosing, is ruined families, ruined lives, etc. I think that just engaging in that industry in any way and propping it up and putting any kind of money or support toward it at all, whether or not you knew the person that you're giving the drugs to is going to overdose because there's fentanyl in your drugs, I think is enough for me to warrant an execution.
Do you disagree with the
but
statement that
hold
cheating
on,
ruins life?
Follow up real quick. What you just described is substantively no different than cheating. You're engaging in degeneracy.
No, that's silly.
You're breaking out of the relationship. You're spreading STDs. Literally,
I don't think it's degenerate.
Here's a fun little fact.
Know what
If every person in the world tomorrow was given some doxycycline and said, "Don't fuck for 2 weeks," it would be like a decade before chlamydia or syphilis or gonorrhea came back, because it would have to be a zoonotic variant that get back into the human population. If we just stopped fucking for 2 weeks and we all took antibiotics, we would just get rid of all of those diseases. It'd be gone. But we can't stop fucking, and we can't stop cheating, apparently.
And I want to be clear,
engaged in that degeneracy, and you're engaged in that behavior, and syphilis does kill people.
Yes,
and ruined relationships kill people.
Fatherlessness.
Husbands and spouses fucking kill people because their spouse cheated on them for the fucking life insurance. People commit suicide because
it doesn't even have to be that. It doesn't even have to be that deep, right? Like, relationships break up, like married relationships, committed relationships where children are involved, right? And if you believe in a nuclear family, and you believe in a mother and a father, or a 2-parent household, I should say, right? And that dissolution that happens when you have cheating involved, and that happens all the time, right? It does actual harm to communities, right? It does actual harm to communities.
Well, not even the communities, to the individual case, right?
True,
sex leads to
all
HIV.
of it, yeah.
Period. Sex out of the relationship leads to HIV and the spread of HIV. You're engaged in that behavior and spreading HIV to other people by cheating on your spouse. It's no different than the drug dealer that is
selling drugs. They have HIV.
What you're saying
because you want it to be, because you don't want to do
what
drugs.
What you're saying is effectively
you want to
like
fuck around on people.
What you're saying is effectively like, hey, driving leads to car accidents. So if you drive, you're putting your family at risk, because there's a chance in there somewhere that you might get into a car accident and die and leave your children and your wife, etc., on their own. Right? Yeah, I guess, sure. Right. But like I said earlier, we can be reasonable about the way in which we restrict people's behavior. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with fucking around if you're in a relationship. I think many people do it all the time and get away with it, and there are no consequences. In fact, I think that it keeps a lot of relationships together, because you're not dealing with the possibility that you might want to fuck this other chick for a while.
So hold on real quick. I'll respond real quick. So first of all, I'm using your consequentialist framework. So the idea that you bring up driving, even though driving has functional utility, and cheating on your spouse has a very minuscule presumed functional utility of keeping relationships together, even though all of the data would suggest otherwise, is a bullshit argument.
Hold on. Sex in general has a pretty a lot of functional utility.
Now you're equivocating things that are not equivocatable.
Hold on. I think it is I can use the word.
No, I'm not going to let you get away with dumb
so
arguments.
Hold on. It's not dumb. It's not dumb at all. Hold on. It's not dumb at all.
All you do is pivot,
right?
like answer the actual principal elements of the argument.
You said a thing, and I'm responding to the thing you said. Right? I think there are benefits to cheating. There's benefits to sex in general. So if I am tired of fucking my girlfriend, right, and I'm unhappy, I'm unhappy, right? I think it makes sense to say, hey, I'm gonna go fuck this other chick for a while. I'll be happy again. I get all the benefits from that, from having this sex. It makes me happy, makes me more productive, makes me maybe more eager to stay in the relationship, because I don't need to break it up because I'm having like a bad time with the sex.
I just want to let the record show that what you did is you attempted to reformulate and equivocate and not answer the principal elements of the question that I had.
What are the principal elements of the question that I didn't answer?
Okay, so the principal element is the utility in a consequentialist framework that you are using of the amount of individuals that their lives are better by cheating versus all of the evidence that we have that, like, having over 10 sexual partners, having promiscuous sex, cheating leads to the breaking up of those relationships. That what you were saying is, yeah, but some people, if they cheat, it's better off. And it's like, yeah, for a minority of people. So it doesn't
okay, so if you're saying that, hey, I'm not suggesting that everybody cheat. I'm suggesting that if you understand these risks that I laid out earlier.
Not your woman.
Hold
right?
on. If
Not
you
your
understand the
girlfriend.
risk that I laid out earlier, right? And you think you can get away with it, go for it, right? But someone
Would
like
you give this advice to your girlfriend?
fuck no, what the fuck?
Exactly.
Why
This
would I
is
want
a
her cheating on me?
problem, right? Like,
I
Wait,
think
hold
this is a
on.
problem.
Why does it bother you that I have different standards for myself than I'd have for my girlfriend?
Well, it doesn't bother me per se, but it just demonstrates like the fault in the logic, a fault in the
I don't think there's any
argument.
fault there at all.
Oh, I don't
You
care.
may not
I
think
don't
There
so,
are
care.
but it
different
is.
standards.
I don't care so long as you don't defraud. When you defraud her, that's the issue. I don't give a fuck if you go up to a girl and say, hey, look, I make way more money than you. You're fucking young. You're getting on your feet. You're doing whatever the fuck you want to do. I like you. Just know I'm going to fuck other girls. But like the bills are paid and that's the deal in this relationship. And if you,
I think that'd be the
you
ideal.
don't get to fuck other people.
Yeah, I think that'd be the
If you're
ideal.
not defrauding this person, right? I don't think that's a good relationship for you. I don't think that's going to lead to good outcomes for you. I think it's probably toxic as fuck, and it's not
Yeah,
likely
there's no
to
deceit.
last.
It's a different
But
story.
but you're not actually doing anything that I could
y'all.
proclaim as
let's-
morally wrong.
Let's
Neither of you
move
guys
in and
are
then
offering-
Lactoid.
So the solution seems to be just move away from monogamous relationships and become polyamorous and just let people group together as they want to group together and allow that to be okayed. That's what it sounds like the solution is. So you can allow more people to agree to be a group of sex partners, so to speak, and they can build their little family and tribe however they want to. That seems to be the solution in which make both parties happy here, because then the commitment is to the group, not necessarily one person.
No, I wouldn't say that that's necessarily a solution. I'm just saying that's the least that you can do to not defraud someone. I don't think that it's necessarily a morally good thing to go around fucking a bunch of other people. I think it puts your relationship at risk. I think if you end up getting someone pregnant and you put children in here, that you're being a bad parent by doing so. Like, I think that can be morally bad. I'm just saying that at the very minimum, one should not defraud other people and lie to them, because it is wrong to do that.
So if there are men that want multiple partners and they are able to buy this state no longer like penalizes them and actually gives them their tax credit for being, they can marry more than one person and be together legally, would that not help the problem if the two women are in agreement? Because they would have to agree.
I think polygamy should be legal.
I think that
Sure, yeah.
might solve the problem in and of itself. So then you have your Monday and you have your Tuesday and you have your Wednesday or whatever makes Doobie fly. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know,
Yeah,
you can have your options
I'm talking about
and in a good framework, and it keeps the family together, because now you guys are a unit and you guys are saying you guys are going to work together to raise kids.
That's people being honest with each other.
Polyamory is not statistically successful.
Well,
For some people,
regardless,
sure, it may work. For outliers, etc. What I'm talking about is a distinct difference between what I would say is morally right, who I would want to hang out with, who I would support, and like what we should actively stop from happening. And I'm saying, if you're out there cheating on your spouse, right, then I don't think the government should be involved or any power should be involved in that. But I think we should recognize that those are untrustworthy, bad people. But if you're married and you have a legal contract, right, with that person, I think it is well within that person's rights, if you cheat on them and violate that contract, that you pay for their lawyer's fees and you pay for half of the shit that you got, and you get fucked in the ass for the piece of shit that you are because you violated the contract anyways.
Let's go to Lactoid, and then Lick. I want to try to reframe this question a little bit, like reframe like how we're looking on this from maybe the extreme that our friend Doobie has had us on, to something a little bit, maybe a bit more manageable, and see where you guys are at. But first I want to hear from Lactoid and then Lick.
I just wanted to, I think Scott was right when he said it's fraud. And in fact, the more that I think about it, I'm not even sure. I think I'd probably be potentially okay with legal ramifications. Like in terms of the ability to like civilly sue somebody, even outside of marriage, right? Mm-hmm. If you promise somebody something and then, you know, absent this promise, like literally breaking this and defrauding the other person, you expose them to a risk to their health, like to the STDs. I think at that point, they probably can. I'd be in favor of
civilly. Yeah, civil.
Yes,
Some
yeah,
form
it
of
wouldn't.
restitution, right? We live in an
Yeah.
apartment together. You're gonna pay my moving expenses. You're gonna pay like whatever it takes for me to like be able to get back on my feet.
Yeah, and if you do infect your partner with an STD, then I'd be in favor of like levying. You've got to pay for the treatment. You got to pay for like the pain and suffering and the psychological harm that comes from that.
It's hard to
now that I'm
prove,
thinking
but
about,
fair enough.
well, it's hard to prove, but it's hard to prove damages with any of this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I would just simply apply a civil suit standard. Now,
Certainly-
obviously, when you're
certainly
married,
medical bills.
yeah, when you're married, I think it's it's a written contract. There's a whole ceremony. I think it's probably a stronger case. But even absent marriage, I think if you lie to if you defraud somebody and put their health at risk against their consent, I'd be in favor of allowing civil suits. So Doobie, I'm sorry, you're probably going to get sued.
Yeah,
Let's go to
you should get
Wick.
sued because you're putting people at risk and lying to them.
It's an issue. You know, like
no.
when people are smooth. When people are open and honest about whatever relationships they want, however they want, I don't care, right? If they wanted to be in a polygamous relationship, okay, as long as all parties involved consent to it, as everyone is okay with it, then it's okay, right? No, immoral action has happened, right? If you want to set up a relationship where you are screwing around with a bunch of other people and they can't, and that's the terms you set and they agree to, good on you. That's all to the good. The issue I'm having here is deceit. It's the dishonesty. It's the I hate this term for it, but I'll use it anyway. Defrauding them, right? Like you are breaking an agreement that you have committed to, a commitment. You're breaking a commitment that you have agreed to. And when you normalize that, right? When you say that this is okay, it's going to lead to bad outcomes. In fact, I would point to this as one of the reasons that we're having a large issue in society with drugs, with fatherlessness, with all these things. Part of this equation is people just cheating and being dishonest. Families are being dissolved over this. This crushes relationships, long-term relationships. And it's causing, I think, actual demonstrable harm that we can measure.
Very interesting. I think it's really interesting that you guys are like so anti exercising your options, when earlier you're all about people making the decisions they want to make with their lives, etc. And hey,
No, I
people
think
should be
it's the
allowed to
same
do the
standard.
things they want to do. Well, no,
I'm
we're talking about
applying
legal
exactly the same
consequences.
standard.
We're talking about legal consequences now.
You're
for
talking
sticking
about
with
I
the
wouldn't go
constraints
so far
pussy.
as legal
We're talking about civil
consequences.
consequences, and there also could be civil consequences for drug use, right? If you
Hey, Lactoid,
if you're
do
drug
you think there should be civil consequences for drug use?
So Doobie,
Yeah,
I think the
people
equivalent.
should be able to sue you if they were harmed by your.
You think your spouse should be able
So
to sue, your
wait,
girlfriend should be able to sue you if she finds out you've been doing weed and you didn't tell her about it?
Here's
If they can prove
no,
harm,
hold on.
yes.
Here's the equivalency. I think the equivalency is if you lie to somebody, you say, "I didn't put marijuana in your cereal," and then they eat the cereal. Right, they're now exposed to a health risk due to a direct fraudulent statement by you. I do think that you should be able to sue them. In fact, I'm pretty sure that happened. Somebody spiked all the brownies at a wedding, and people started filing suit against the people who spiked because they didn't want to ingest those drugs. They didn't consent to having, being exposed to the risks of those drugs. There's a difference there when you're taking drugs, when you're the one putting the substance into your own body, you're not exposing that substance to somebody else, right? It's completely different.
Wait, do you think that people should be able to sue each other for lying about, let's say, the size of their dick?
I got a question for
Let's
you.
say I'm Wick and I'm on Tinder, and so we start talking about my dick, right? And I'm like, this fucking thing's 10 inches long, fucking 8 inches thick. It's gonna tear you apart. And then I pull it down. She goes through the trouble of going on a date with me. We get into the bedroom, and it's like a 3-incher, right?
So,
like, do you think she should be able to sue me?
Yeah, if she can prove damages, if she can prove damages for the fact that you lied,
wasted time.
Yeah, if you can prove harm, you
No.
can sue. This is why you never lie.
Should I be able to sue like movie companies for saying that a movie's wonderful and
dinner
advertising,
money,
and I go see it and shit?
Hold on,
no, that's subjective, right? Whether or not it's wonderful.
People on this panel.
There was a case.
Damages.
I never lied.
Okay, I just said tell you.
Send pictures, and then she knows.
No,
My dick will do
Lactoid,
actual measurable damage. That's all I gotta say, right? Like there are
Lactoid.
damages that will be
Psychological
Lactoid.
damage.
Yeah,
I got
exactly.
it.
Lactoid. The problem here is that I don't think people understand. I think they're stuck in a position where they think that like frivolous lawsuits always go through and always go to court, waste time and resources. I think the issue that maybe because you're a lawyer, you kind of just like know that and you're not even thinking about it. But like if you just bring forward any suit, sometimes they do slip through for sure. But like a lot of times there are lawsuits that are just silly and they don't go to court because they don't pass any muster, right? So yes, you can sue for about fucking anything now, but that doesn't mean you get your day in court when it's just
that's
a
not what we're
dumb
talking
fucking
about.
thing.
I have a
We're
question.
saying that,
What we're
hey,
talking about is you defraud someone, you must prove
By lying
the
about your dick
fraud.
size.
You
No,
must
let
prove
me
the
ask you this,
fraud, and
Yeah,
you must
so
prove
your
the
dick size isn't as
damages.
big as you said it is. The damages, she wasted her day going on her date with you. She wasted time, energy. She put on her nice perfume, nice outfit, going on this date with you. Wasted a bunch of time that she could put to some other activity.
Doobie,
That's
can I
seems
get-
like
let me-
No, no,
Doobie,
no.
let me-
I have a
let me
question.
address
And she had to see your
Please.
small dick at the end of
Sorry,
the day.
I was the one who put forward the position. I just want to quickly, Doobie, when you're saying you brought up like the dick size, I agree with you. The damages for this are probably going to be very small. Probably wouldn't justify a actual like court trial. Maybe something like small claims or some
Or the emotional
ALJ. But
having this connection with this dude that you think has a really nice cock, and then you see it and it's tiny, and now all this emotional connection that you made with him is
okay.
is
But
gone.
Doobie, here's what I would say though. Like let's imagine higher damages. Let's say this guy promises you that like the dick is 10 inches long, like the width of a soda can, and like he can go all night long, and then you show up and it's like it's nothing, right? And then you let's say you flew across the world for this and you're out like thousands of dollars and you missed like a whole bunch of shit. I mean, at that point, like, wouldn't you agree, Doobie? Like, isn't it like you should pay for that shit, right?
No.
You lied. You fucking lied.
Fucking dumb.
No, get a picture. Get a video of
So
the
this
dick
is
in
no,
action.
So this is why. This
Who
is
would
why.
fly
This
halfway
is
across
this
the
is
world?
So
This is why,
I want.
this is why
okay.
market systems of justice
There's a
are
link in
better.
chat.
The reason that market systems of justice are better is that when you have to pay insurance rates for rights enforcement, as opposed to paying taxes to the state, you don't need this tortitious. You don't need
bad
tort
dick
reform.
insurance.
Because, well, no, people that engage in frivolous lawsuits all of the time are going to have high insurance premiums as
Yeah,
a
but that's not
means of
frivolous.
representing them, right?
By your standard, that's not
sorry.
frivolous,
The type of
right?
person that
Sure.
just does dumb,
I-
stupid lawsuits all the
I
time.
I want to let.
and
I want to let.
insane
I want to let
insurance
in
rates.
Wiccan. I'll
Yeah,
let
this
Wiccan
is
go.
my-
And I just for the record, right? My dick wouldn't go to small court. It's grand larceny. All right. These federal
Goes to
charges.
big
Okay.
court. Big claims
big-
court.
The biggest court.
Micro court.
Grand
Micro claims court.
Right? Like, look, the damages will be measurable and intense. And anyway, regardless, I have a question for you, Doobie. So say you cheat on your partner, right? And the girl you're cheating with smokes marijuana. You don't know they smoke marijuana, and they suck your dick.
Is it
okay?
me, or
so
when
you
I
go
hear
back
to
to your
people
partner,
like
they
randomly
also
brag
suck your
about the
dick.
size of their
And
dick,
would your
it
partner
just
be able
feels
to
like
sue
little
you
dick
for
energy.
illegally ingesting marijuana? Like, do you think that would
The
be something
need every
that they
time
would
dicks
be able
come
to
up to be
take you
like,
court
look
for?
how big I
No,
am.
she should know my dick's
ha-ha."
intoxicating.
Just it just
Okay,
seems
you know
like
what? I'll
little
give you
dick
that.
shit.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that
So
one.
dumb.
Fair enough. I guess to a more serious point, however, right? Like, this idea of being honest does extend, I think, to misrepresenting yourself, right? Like, when it comes to any quality that you may have, if you are demonstrably lying about a factual thing, not like saying, hey, I have a good personality and sense of humor, that's more subjective. But when you say things like, and this would work both ways, like if you say things like, I am actually kind of small down there, but then you get up and you show up and she can't handle it, I think she should be able to also, sue for damages.
That's ridiculous.
No, I don't think
sue
so.
for height, Wick. She can sue for height. Yo, I'm
Yes.
6'3".
Don't lie about your height.
Bro,
If she invests
nuts, too.
resources, into you, right? Like if she invests resources into you by paying for a plane ticket to come down to see you, and you said you were 6'2" and you 5'2", yeah, I think she has
No,
a.
it's called-
That's catfishing. That's literally catfishing.
Let me put this in perspective with a question.
And these are the people that earlier were ranting at me about wanting like a fucking nanny state, right? And they want you to be able to sue people for having a small dick or being like 5.
Just don't lie about it.
What is
people? Why are we coddling people to the
what
grave?
is the
What are you coddling?
What is,
It's not.
listen.
Be a fucking adult. No, be a fucking adult and look into shit.
What is the principal difference between someone lying to you and them flying across the country and they have catfished you and lied and you've expended resources based off of these lies than me being a used car salesman and saying that a vehicle has never been in an accident, and then you drive it off the lot after purchasing the vehicle and the car breaks down and you've expended resources and you would not have purchased this car as opposed to another car if you had known that the car had the damages that it had and that it was different than what it was that they sold you.
That is not equivalent at all. That's
It's the same thing.
What's the principal difference?
No,
I'm just
it's-
asking
no,
what's
it's fucking not.
well
Oh, is
just
that a lawyer
tell me the
telling us?
principal difference. Just tell me the difference.
Because one okay, look. Everybody can't be a fucking car expert. So yeah, there's a fucking possibility you could get in the car and think because of the way that they rigged it that it is a good vehicle, but it's designed to only be a patchwork and it works so far. What we're
Same
talking
thing
about
with women. Yeah.
No. But that means they tricked you and it worked. It worked for a time. The thing with being defrauded about someone's, let's just keep the example very simple, height, right? Why did you not ask for a picture? You could literally
how tall do I look? Guess my height.
The way of proving
You're seeing me right now. Guess my height.
Listen,
What's my
No,
height?
Mike,
dude?
so look at the link I just dropped in.
No,
Sure.
it's
Look at
it is
What's my
much
height?
easier.
No, you see me right now. How tall am I?
I don't listen. That doesn't.
You don't
matter.
know. That's the thing.
No,
You can.
It's irrelevant to the
but
point he's
but
making.
If height was a real thing for me, I would ask further questions. Like for instance, if you're a guy and you're like, man, I prefer that my chick has a big butt. You can literally just ask for a picture to prove it. It's very simple.
Okay, so
But
what
you
Smooth is
actually-
asking,
you actually-
what Smooth is asking
But you
for
didn't.
is due diligence, right?
Due
Like,
diligence.
Right, but
so Lactoid.
You didn't explain the
should
difference.
Shouldn't
He didn't explain the
party-
difference.
Right,
like-
bro,
Right, like I asked for pictures of
No,
the
no, no,
car.
no.
No, listen, I asked for pictures of the car. I looked under the hood, but like you said, I'm not a mechanic. Everything looked good to me. It looked like it was in good condition.
But you
I got
no,
like
but look,
right.
but
They
Scott,
defrauded me. But how is that different?
You got information that was fraudulent, right?
That's what
you were
we're
tricked.
talking about.
So,
Same
what
difference.
if they manufactured the photo?
But the girl that went halfway across the country, she didn't, or the guy that went up to this person and thought, because we've all seen it on fucking Catfish a million times where these people go up to these people and you're like, well, how the fuck did you get here? Oh, well, I didn't FaceTime them. You know what I'm saying? I've never actually FaceTimed this person.
You're
I've only
hiding.
talked to them on the
You're
phone.
hiding from the
I've only
argument.
I've only wrote
You're
them
running
letters.
away
Oh,
like a coward. Don't be a
we met in
coward,
the damn
Smooth.
chat room. No, you're a fucking adult.
Smooth.
Smooth, don't be a coward.
What? No,
Answer
no.
the question. Don't be
No,
a
hold
coward.
on.
You're
Can
running.
I
You're
just be
running
clear
away.
about-
No, listen.
It's
You're
called being
running
simple
away.
Fucking,
No, you're
bro,
running
I'm not
away.
running away from anything.
You're running
It's called
away.
living in real life.
Yeah, ironically, you
You're
guys don't
running
want to
away.
listen to nanny
No,
state here.
listen.
Nobody's
Listen,
running away from
listen.
anything.
You're running away
I don't live in
because
real life.
no, listen. You're running away because an individual could say, "I'm 6'4", right? Could show you pictures with really short dudes that make him look tall. Could show you pictures of somebody else that don't show up on reverse image search, right? And could catfish you completely and successfully. And you ask for pictures.
That
You ask
exists.
for. You could ask right.
Video
And what I'm
chat
saying.
exists.
Okay, so they made themselves look
FaceTime
taller.
is a thing.
They,
It's been a thing since
you're
like
running
09.
away
Yeah,
again.
okay,
You refuse to
Wait,
deal with
can I
the
ask
question.
Can I ask a
You
question and
lose.
kind of clarify
Take the
something
L
really
and walk
quickly?
away.
Oh God. Wait, so
No,
to clarify, because there could be issues with the car, aka the woman, that you can't see, right? Let's say she has nice tits, nice ass, everything she says physically, but she didn't tell you that she has BPD or some other crazy shit that's gonna make her hell to live with, right? She has a ton of mental health issues, right? And she didn't make you aware of her medical history before you went out and tried to fuck her, right? And then developed an emotional connection with this person. Should I
Where
also
did
be able
she-
to sue this woman?
Where did
Look,
she
if she
where
is-
did she defraud you? She didn't defraud you.
Wait, hold on.
No,
If she, hold
I'll
on,
agree with like Doobie, right? Like if
and you could
if
go even
someone has
further. Like, what if?
substantive, like a drug addiction,
No.
and they
Where
don't.
did she defraud you? Where did she
Hold on,
defraud you? She
hold
didn't
on.
defraud you.
She omitted the fact that she has mental health issues, and even health. It could be like health issues. What if she has fucking cancer or something? She didn't tell me. I'm spending all this time,
Omitting's
all
a little
these,
bit different.
all these resources toward a relationship that is not going to work because she has cancer.
No, hold on, but Doobie, omitting's a little bit different, right? You can't reasonably expect somebody to like say everything about themselves on a date,
Right.
or even within the first like couple like months of living with somebody.
In
or
something
being
as
with somebody.
critical as, yo,
But-
I got a year to
but-
live.
Well, so I agree with you that you probably should tell them, right? But like this would be like if I asked somebody, "Do you have cancer?" and they say no, then be more comparable, right? Because now you have a direct defraudment that's like leading somebody to give them money. Like if somebody faked having cancer
Crazy.
to get donations from me, do we all agree this would be like fucking crazy? Don't you agree
It'd
that
be
somebody
fraud.
faked? It'd be fraud, right? It'd be fraud because this person is lying about something in order to coerce, to coerce me into giving them something that I otherwise
Pressure,
wouldn't
yeah,
give them,
yeah.
which is
Uh,
wrong.
Let's go
Okay.
to Aiko.
So the answer is Doobie, yes. To the thing that you asked 20 minutes ago. It's,
Wait, which
I've
thing?
been trying to get in since. It's that yes, there is something called rape by deception. I put the link in the chat. I think Lactoid will probably be able to speak on it professionally more than I could. But there are times when through misrepresentation you can be held liable for the actions that you're doing. And of course, if it's interpreted as rape, as it is in like California and in Sweden, I believe, and Israel and other places, that's a far more serious consequence than what we're talking about, which is just suing somebody for damages. This is actually a sort of a criminal application of that law. And so if you misrepresent yourself, like for instance, stealthing is an example of this. And that stealthing is one of those things that's considered rape in some of these countries that have these rape by deception laws. But also there've been cases, and I can't find them right now, but cases where the people said that they were like a celebrity, and then somebody slept with them, and they woke up in the morning. It's just Better Call Saul had this actually happen in that show too, where at the next day they found out that it wasn't who they said they were, and that deception meant that they consented to something that they otherwise wouldn't consent to, and that's considered to be non-consensual under some of these rape by deception laws that exist out in there. So yes, in the real world, it's not hypothetical. These are real laws that have real provide real consequences for some of these actions.
Yeah,
Wait,
it's
hold
the
on,
idea.
you're-
Like, look, we can. All you have to do to avoid these things is don't lie. Don't lie to people about
okay,
these things.
stop, please.
That's all you have to do.
But Aiko, you're comparing like apples and oranges here, I think, because I looking at the Wikipedia article you posted, right, there's rape by deception thing.
Right.
And what they're talking about, at least in the United States, is, for example, somebody sneaking into a woman's bed when her boyfriend leaves and fucking her while she's asleep, and she didn't fight back because she thought it was her boyfriend. Right? That's a little different than what we're talking about here.
Yeah,
Right?
no, I agree. But like the stealthing thing I was talking about, that's what got Edward Snowden in Sweden. Like that's the whole reason. Like has been like hiding out for decades because
Julian
he's
Assange.
close to- I'm sorry, did I say Snowden? Yeah, I meant
Yeah.
Assange.
And presumably.
Yeah,
I don't-
that's right. We never
don't
knew.
believe
We
that
never
shit.
found out because the court case never happened, and the court case never happened because he wouldn't go defend himself. Yeah, for sure. I'm just saying that
But
law
again-
exists there.
again,
He
fucking
wouldn't
somebody
go
without
get
a condom.
extradited. Like,
Fucking somebody
they
without a
they were
condom
gonna
when you
use
told them
to
that you would have a
extradite.
condom on is again pretty far and away from lying to somebody about your height or something, showing up at a date being shorter than you said you were.
Absolutely.
So Doobie, I agree with you that like when it comes to lying about your height or something, I'm not sure that I don't think that should rise to the extremity where criminal justice should get involved, because when it comes to the differentiation between civil and criminal, there is like lines of severity in which one crosses into the threshold of another. I would say though that stealthing is comparable in a lot of the same ways as cheating on your spouse, right? The idea of stealthing is without a condom. The idea of stealthing, the reason why it's a problem is you're exposing this person to potential diseases that they explicitly did not consent to. They only wanted to have sex with you if you were using a condom. When you're cheating,
Wait, is that why stealthing is a problem? I don't think that's why stealthing is a problem.
No,
One of the reasons.
That's one of the reasons why stealthing is an issue, right? Because they didn't consent to
Also,
unprotected
pregnancy,
sex.
unwanted pregnancies and stuff like that. Like people
Right,
like,
but even
I
if they
didn't
had birth
agree for
control,
you to
though.
nut inside me, like stuff like that. Like that's,
Right, but it's still a crime, even if they were on birth control or something along these lines. The point here is like you're exposing somebody to something that they didn't consent to. In the same way that if you make an agreement with somebody, I'm only going to have sex with you, and then you expose them to STDs that you may have picked up on one of your various escapades, that seems to me to be a lot more analogous to stealthing, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Wait, so no, first off, but I'm something popped into my head just now. I'm not kind of curious. Okay. Do you guys think it should be illegal to like come on a girl's face without telling her? So she's giving you a blowjob, and right before
you need more, you need more information.
Okay, she's giving you a blowjob.
Do you say you're not going to do it?
No, hold on. You don't say anything. You just fucking do it, right? So right before you come, you whip your dick out of your mouth and you come on her face. Right? Should that be illegal because she didn't agree to that?
If she specifically asked you not to,
no, because there's civil remedies for that.
If she says not to
sue and she can prove damages, then yeah, but you don't have to have a criminal. You don't have to make that criminal.
So it should be like there should be like a civil lawsuit for coming on a girl's face.
Unless she says like don't do this, because again. You're trying to draw analogies here between like something in which.
Wait, so if a woman doesn't list out every sex act she's not interested in before you have sex, like you can do those things because she didn't say not to do them.
No. So first of all, there's implied consent, right? Unless she actively says not to do that. When you're engaged in sex, there's a consent to the sex.
What if you piss on her?
Engaging, right? Well, again, this could be implied. Now,
who thinks to say, "Hey, don't piss on me during sex"?
But that's the beauty of civil suits.
I mean,
you just let the jury decide that.
Yeah, right. I love civil suits. That's how I make my money.
So the thing here that what you're actually discovering is the problems with a criminal justice system run by the state. Is that the criminal justice system is required?
I don't consent to this. I don't consent.
The criminal justice system is required to not waste taxpayers' resources, right? And so what ends up happening is they draw arbitrary lines of what they think is like too ridiculous to be a case to let into court, and certain things they consider to not be something that you can sue over. And then they set it's usually via precedent more than it is via actual laws. Now, when you are engaged in a market justice system, it doesn't have to be ANCAP, right? But just a market justice system where you're having to consistently pay yourself for the justice system itself. And as an individual, if you're the type of person that like gets cum on in the face in the middle of the sex act, and then you're like, I'm gonna sue this person because some cum got in my eye, and you're suing people left and right, you are the type of person that has to pay insane rates in order to have representation in the system.
I'm asking what your standard should be, not whether or not there be frivolous lawsuits. I'm saying, hey, Scott, if I did this to a woman, do you think she should be able to sue me? And do you think that it should be like a something I might be like civilly or criminally liable for?
Right, and that's what I'm stating with my answer. My answer is that what we should do, right? What I would presume would be the best system is a form of market justice that's actually able to handle these things. I do agree that the state is silly and dumb and wastes money and is bad. And so when we're discussing things that you should be able to sue for, technically, the state will make it not so because it seems so frivolous.
But we kind of have that now, right? Because if somebody goes to Lactoid and asks him to accept that lawsuit, if he doesn't think he'll win, he won't take it, right? Because it'd be a waste of his effort.
So well, it depends. If insurance is getting involved or not.
Some people just fucking sue
but
no matter what.
But the filter generally is whether or not a lawyer will take your case. Or it might be whether or not
there is a lawyer that will take any case.
Lactoid will take any case.
I know.
But no, that's not true. If a lawyer takes your case and then loses and doesn't get paid, like that's not a good use.
That's a huge investment of time. Yeah, for sure.
But Lactoid, I'm actually curious on your thoughts on that. Because I'm not sure we got your full thoughts on what DB said. If you complete on a woman's in another area than the woman did not.
Let's say it's on her chest, right, or something, or on her back, right? If you're fucking lazy, like something.
Good luck proving
you didn't ask her for didn't ask her for permission. You just came on her.
So my There obviously is a concept of implied consent, and there's also explicit consent. And if anybody was to say explicitly, don't do this, which is, I think, in the case of cheating or in the case of stealthing, which are very obvious examples of, do not do this, and then they go ahead and do it. Clearly, that's not consensual, right? But if somebody doesn't say, like, don't come on my chest, and implicitly there's no expectation that that I can't come on her chest, like that omission, I don't think is the same thing as somebody explicitly saying don't do this. And so, in that kind of situation, where somebody didn't have any reasonable belief that they couldn't come on their chest, I don't think a civil lawsuit would apply there. If she said explicitly, "Do not do this," then perhaps you could have a basis. Before we ended this topic, right? Yeah, and the damage. And here's the other thing: like the damages here are going to be incredibly difficult to prove, right? Because
what if she's allergic to cum?
Yeah. So then at that point, because here's the truth, right? And in civil suits, for any kind of
women in the world,
for any kind of bodily, so proving psychological harm is incredibly difficult, and it's incredibly difficult to get any money out of it, especially absent some kind of like real traumatic accident that the jury can relate to. When it comes to like physical injury, which is where most of the money in lawsuits is, the medical treatment, the specials are the baseline, right? This is just common litigation. So you take look at the specials, and then obviously, there's more stuff tacked onto there, like loss of income, any kind of, if they had negative effects with their spouse because of it, stuff like that. And you also have to prove the medical expenses are related to the accident. So if you can prove 20 grand of treatment that came from some dude coming on your chest, well, then maybe you'll have a case. But if you can't prove any kind of medical damages, you're not getting shit, right? Cases in which there's no medical treatment, these people don't get shit for settlement.
So she'd have to go to therapy for like her post-cum trauma, basically.
Yeah, you can. I mean, if you have some kind of basis there, if you can convince a jury, if it's that believable, then maybe you should. But I just
even then, like they're gonna have their expert witness, like they're gonna have there's gonna be discovery that's gonna go into like what happened in therapy. Like you'd have to be legitimately damaged by the act.
Discovery.
I got some discovery for you.
Cum stains on my t-shirt.
So
she would have had explicitly saying, "Do not do this."
I could go around and piss on women who don't explicitly say that I can't piss on them during sex. And so long as they can't prove like psychological damages, right? And it's just that they're pissed off that I piss on them.
There's no implied standard that I can't
there's
pee
no
on
consequences.
People, or that I can pee on people, right?
Why not? Maybe I'm into rough sex. You knew I was into rough sex, so I want to do the weird shit.
Yeah, no, if you want to like change the cultural standards that like peeing on people is just normal, then obviously there wouldn't be civil
not even that it's normal, that we're having rough sex, and during rough sex, lots of shit happens, right? Including piss sometimes.
Yeah, look, Dennis Rodman broke his dick 3 times having sex. He didn't sue the women.
Holy shit, that's amazing. That's like fucking amazing. I did not know
it's
that.
True.
Read more about
this. Look at the story.
I felt like a twinge in my dick. Like
look at the story. It's true.
I have to look it up. I'm compelled to look it up.
3 times.
I'm gonna burn it from my memory.
The first time in half.
Is this is I guess more of a just a little question here. Is the cultural standard context dependent, or location dependent? So the cultural standard of what a you could do to someone sexually, right? Does that change because you're at like a BDSM club, right? Like what's outside? What would you do outside of a BDSM club?
Change. Yeah, obviously context changes expectations.
Yeah, and so by the way, this is also codified in rape laws. So for example, one of maybe there may have been like a few like hyper progressive jurisdictions that have removed this, but in most places, a defense against rape charges is if you can show a history of sexual interaction with that partner. It used to be that if you showed a history of any sexual interaction with different people, then the defense could bring that in and be like, look, she's a floozy. But that was removed because they said that's just something not relevant. But what is relevant when we're talking about establishing expectations is, if I'm in a relationship with somebody, I don't or I'm married to somebody, I don't ask my wife for consent every night before I kiss her on the cheek before I go to sleep. But if I were to kiss some random woman on the cheek before she went to sleep, that'd be really fucking weird, right? So there's obviously there's expectations and implications there.
Good night, honey.
Yeah, it's really fucked up.
No, I'll bite that bullet. I don't give a fuck. I don't believe in implicit contracts. Like I just don't. I don't think any norm or anything implies to that. I think you have to actively say what it is that you want and don't want.
Well, hold on. Do I have to ask my wife for consent? Hey, baby, I'm gonna kiss you on the cheek every night before bed. Is that like something that has to be explicitly
Well, if it's your
can
wife,
can I give her a hug?
I mean, if it's your wife, right? Like they can revoke consent at any one point in time that they want. But if it's in
They can say no,
marriage
but I'm saying.
contract,
So if
Right,
she
they can-
doesn't explicitly say that I can't put my dick in her ass while she's asleep, like I can wake her up that way, and until she says no, it's fine.
well, you don't get to violate bodily autonomy explicit. Like you need the explicit permission to do that first.
Can I really?
So
Wait,
like
hold on.
you don't get to wake her up by putting your dick in her butt
Yeah.
ever unless she actively tells you beforehand, like, hey, I'm into free use. If you're into free use, like, hey, I don't care if you put
Free
your dick
use.
in my butt to wake me up. Like if that's the shit you're into and that's what you guys agree to, perfectly fine. But you don't get to do
You
that
just
because
say you don't believe in like
violated bodily-
implicit contracts.
No, I said you don't. Yes, you don't.
Yeah,
There's
so
no
like
implicit
so
contract
if we're into
to
like
be
free
able
use,
to
quote unquote,
violate
meaning
bodily autonomy.
it's
What are you
okay for me
talking
to
about?
it's okay for me to like fuck around with her while she's asleep, right? Why
No.
wouldn't that hold on? Why not? What do you mean?
You don't have an. I don't believe in an implicit contract. Doesn't mean you get to do whatever you want to people. Like what is
Okay,
that?
hold on.
logic?
So when you say free use, you mean she needs to draw out a list of every sex act
No.
I can do.
What
to
he's
her.
saying is that just because you're married doesn't, like, just the fact that you are married or in a relationship does not make it okay to just wake someone up by putting your dick in them. That's
Okay,
just not.
again, he
not
just
okay.
said if you guys have agreed that you're into free use, which means you can fuck around while you're sleeping, right? So
Mhm.
are you saying that she would need to like draw out a list of everything she's okay with me doing to her?
No, an explicit contract versus an implicit contract doesn't mean that every single solitary thing needs to be explicit in the contract. What an explicit contract means is that you've actually like had some form of negotiation for a contract. And that I don't believe that there are just these implied norms, for example, when you have sex with someone, using this extreme example, that like you won't violate these norms. Just the same way, I don't believe if you go to a Starbucks and a drink is $12 and you didn't look at the menu, you're like, hey, there's an implicit contract that like coffee doesn't cost this much. It's like, no, there was a fucking menu. You agreed to buy this thing, you purchased this thing, and then you didn't realize until later that like that it was way more expensive than you thought it was. It's the same situation with sex. If you tell people I'm not into BDSM shit, that's enough to say I'm not into a wide range of things, right? Because you've explicitly stated you're not into things. That doesn't mean,
but okay,
hey,
but
I'm
who's to
not
say
into
what's
this, I'm not into
objectively like
this, I'm not into
BDSM
this,
shit?
I'm not into- Well,
There's
that's
still
the
like
whole point of-
there's still like an implication there that BDSM shit is this category, and we're gonna implicitly believe that we understand everything that's in this category.
You're playing
but
but games with words.
I'm not playing
and
anything.
Understanding the concept.
No, okay, because maybe
No, you do this shit all
maybe
the
by
time.
BDSM shit, she thinks, hey, that includes choking, but I don't think choking is BDSM shit, so I'm gonna choke her, right? And
Right. There's a there's a misunderstanding there. Misunderstandings happen. Right?
Okay, like the dick in the ass thing would be a misunderstanding.
The dick in the
No.
ass, there's no
What
contract.
are you getting about this?
Oops.
What are you getting about this?
You're just
No,
you're
no,
just
no, no. Where
throwing
is the
random shit
disconnect?
out there.
Whoopsie. Wait, a Saudi Arabian guy actually used that defense. I
remember that.
Yeah.
I slipped and fell into the sleeping woman's vagina, and it
I also-
fucking worked somehow.
Yeah, it actually, it was Saudi Arabia. But
Wait, no. That was in the United States. That was in California.
That was not.
I remember this because it really fucking pissed me off. Right? It was in California.
That was not in
He was a
California.
diplomat, and he had diplomatic immunity. He went back to Saudi Arabia while the investigation was ongoing. I remember that because it really pissed me off. It was in California.
Actually
Look
in
it up.
California.
Look
Okay,
it
so
up.
hold
It was
on.
in California.
So I have another story from California from the Wikipedia that was sent by ICO. Apparently in San Francisco, a doctor told somebody, and I don't mean to laugh because it's serious, but he said that he told this woman that you developed a horrible infection from a toilet seat, and the only way that we can cure you is through having sex with me. And she did. She paid him $1,000 and had sex with him. And he did this to dozens of women, apparently. And they actually they created a statute specifically to legalize that because of him. And they actually did eventually throw him in prison for 3 years for for doing this.
Good.
So dozens of people.
Wait,
he did
hold
this
on.
to dozens
Hold
of
on.
women.
I need to be clear. I was incorrect. The millionaire Saudi Arabian dude who slipped and fell into a teenager's penis, I'm sorry, vagina, was in the UK, not California. California was the guy who was keeping like his workers as like slaves, and they try to jump the fence and et cetera, et cetera. And that guy got diplomatic immunity. He left the country. So
Okay.
irritating.
So the story that I just gave you, the guy, like the women who would have not had sex with this doctor had they not been lied to. How is that different than the wife who would not have sex with her husband had she not been lied to?
Wait, can you say that one more time?
Yes. So in this case, the doctor convinced the women, these dozens of women, that the only way to cure the disease, their potentially fatal disease, was to have sex with him, because apparently the vaccine would be injected through his penis, was what he argued.
Oh, I think I remember this.
Yeah. And so if he had not lied to them, they would have never done it. Okay. They also charge him $1,000
Lactoid,
each.
are
So.
you a vaccine denier here?
The Dixon denier.
But the question I can't talk about that on Twitch, but the question here that I think is relevant is there a, in this case, the women would have not had sex with the doctor had they not been lied to.
Right.
For the husband who's cheating, the wife would not have sex with him had she not been lied to. And so my question for you is, how do you distinguish between these two things?
Well, I think that doctors have like a legal position of authority granted to them by the state, by the license that they have. So using that authority granted to them by the society to exploit people in that way, I think is pretty, I don't think it's at all comparable to, a husband lying to his wife.
So
what if it's not a doctor? Yeah, what if it's not a doctor? What if it's just some random guy who's like quickly like the only
random dude?
Yeah, the only way I can cure you is by having sex with you, and then like.
Then yeah, I wouldn't say he should be charged. No.
Okay.
Yeah, like what? Like okay, hold on. So
yeah,
wait, hold on. So like, if there's like an agent or something that says, hey, I can get you into fucking commercials and shit if you suck my dick. Right? If we have sex, I'll be your agent, and you'll get into commercials and whatnot, and it just doesn't happen or whatever, right? Then I don't think he should be charged either. I think that there is some responsibility on their end. To understand that, hey, sleeping with this person is probably a bad idea.
Should Weinstein have been charged?
Real quick,
Doobie just said that quid pro quo rape isn't rape so long as
I don't think it's
give
rape.
them anything.
No, hold on. I don't think it's rape.
Why is it for sex specifically that you have this standard and is not money? Like, so if I
hold
give
on. I don't
money
think
to
that's
someone,
rape.
right? If I gave money to someone who promised me that they would do something for me, they would promise me they'd mow my lawn, for example, and then they didn't mow my lawn, I think you would have no problem with me taking them to court and say, hey, I was promised a service.
I think you're putting the pussy on the pedestal by comparing it to like actual money. It's literally just like a
what
sex
is
act
happening
that for
is
most guys takes
promising
like
a
5 minutes.
service. They're promising a service. In this case, hey, if you sleep with me, I will provide this service. I will get you into the movies. Like, I will mow your lawn, right? Like they say, if I sleep with you, if you let me sleep with you, I will mow your lawn. And then they don't mow your lawn. Why is it that in case of money, you'd call that fraud, but when it case of when it comes to sex as a payment, it wouldn't be fraud. Why is it different?
Yeah, again, you're putting the pussy on a pedestal. I don't think like sex or vagina is comparable to like money. Is like, I think that if you're
on a pedestal?
Yeah, what the fuck?
It's literally a commodity.
I think that
money.
Wait, hold on. I think no, it's not. Calm down. I think that
it's only commodity if you assume it's rare and you assume you can't get it from somewhere else. You have to give it.
So again, commodities can be ubiquitous.
No, you have private property, and the reason you have private property, be it a commodity, be it tender whatsoever, is because you have mixed your body in some form of labor as a means of gaining access to that private property. Private property is just the extension of self-ownership, is the idea that I own myself. So it's actually the saying you're putting the pussy on a pedestal by comparing it to money is they're the same thing. The ownership of property is derived from the homesteading of commodity and property. by your utilizing
I think,
your
okay,
body as you
I'm going to
so
reach an
choose.
olive branch out to you. I think if there was a contract that said, hey, if you let me fuck you 10 times a week or something, I'm going to get into this movie, and that doesn't happen, right? Or you don't even fucking try, then hey, yeah, of course. Maybe you could compare it to money, then there might be damages. But if it's just like a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like
Verbal contract.
a verbal contract or an agreement between two people. This is, hey, yeah, I'm gonna be, if you want me to be your agent, you need to suck my dick, right? And this woman chooses to do it, right, to have this man be her agent, then I think that's her responsibility, her choice to do that thing, and
Hey,
she should take responsibility for it.
hey,
You're
Lactoid.
just saying silly
I,
shit at this point.
There's nothing silly about that.
There's
I
no
would.
difference between those two things.
I'm curious about like the like reasonable person standard, right? Like in the
The
case
basis
of
of all law.
and like in the case of the women with the the sex doctor, the I'll inject.
He wasn't a real
like,
doctor, by the way.
of course. Oh,
He wasn't a real
No,
doctor.
it was
So the
literally
dude's
some
okay
guy.
with
It was some guy who was calling random businesses and telling the clerks that he was a doctor who got a hold of their blood samples and that like he had to meet them at the hotel. It was, yeah, dozens of women fell for this.
I want to
Okay,
learn more
okay.
about
Are
this
you
case.
telling me?
but,
Wait.
so,
Okay, go ahead.
I'm taking
so
inspiration from this guy.
I'm wondering, should these women not, and I think this is some of what DB has been trying to get to, shouldn't there not be a reasonable person standard that a reasonable person would not think that a cure would be injected through a person's dick as a fucking hotel room, can we
I
not
mean,
say that um uh so yeah, what about that? Like, should that not have come
So
to?
Why does it
yeah,
matter if they're reasonable? What if they're mentally challenged?
right. Well, that's one thing, right? Reasonable person standard is not necessarily used to dictate the circumstances of every victim and what every victim did and whether or not they were taken advantage of. The reasonable person standard is usually applied to somebody who did something wrong, like a tortfeasor or a criminal, determine what the actions that they were doing. Was it something really in terms of negligence that a reasonable person would do? So with crime, because somebody's intentionally breaking the law, right, such as intentional fraud or something along those lines, reasonability is not really a defense. It's not really a standard. It's not really applicable here because, really the baseline standard of the law is a reasonable person does not lie, right? The reasonable person standard is really applied to people who are negligent. Like when I'm driving a car and somebody jumps in front of my car and I swerve and I hit somebody, or I swerve and I hit a tree, would a reasonable person do that? Well, the court might say, yeah, a reasonable person would swerve and hit a tree. Therefore, can we really hold this person responsible for their actions?
Why I'm asking this is because in the civil suits of Alex Jones and I think Turco or Coulson, and I remember also what's his face,
Turkle?
Dr. Oz. Though I'm not sure if it's a civil suit, that might have just been testimony in front of Congress, where they all said like a reasonable person wouldn't believe the bullshit that comes out of my mouth, right? Like Dr. Oz says this, I believe Tucker Carlson says this, and Alex Jones definitely says this. And like, is that any sort of defense at all for like lying?
Yeah.
Like making
So
up stories?
the one exception to what I just said was that in terms of things like puffery, like if you say I got the best waffles in town, this is normally something that was like, hey, like this is like puffery is a pretty common exception to deceit, right? It's a common exception because the idea is in a society with reasonable people, like we all come across this, we should all know that like they're not making any objective statement. It gets, and why I think there were some issues with their argument on this is when you start making very specific claims, it starts becoming more difficult to show that that a reasonable person shouldn't believe this. Because if I say I saw X and X do X and X over here, I mean, how is that puffery, right? A reasonable person could absolutely believe that actually happened that way. I mean, would you raise it as a legal defense? Absolutely. Do I think? But also, I almost wonder, right, if Alex Jones actually believes the things that he was saying, I don't think he should be in trouble. That's why I didn't actually like the defense of, well, no one should take me seriously. I thought that was pretty weak, and I think it actually from my perspective, has something to do with the fact of how unsuccessful he's been in those lawsuits. I think he should have been straightforward and say, I genuinely believe this, because, I mean, it's very difficult to prove that you're lying
so
if you genuinely believe it.
If I say that my dick is magical and it has magical properties, which might include healing, right? Like, it's just very, like, putting my dick inside of a woman does amazing things to her, right? And some would say miraculous.
Raises the dead in Michael's case.
That's
witch
puffery.
doctor and he made magical claims instead of scientific claims, I think it would be more defensible.
Right. Or, for example, let's say you had like incredibly bad eyesight and like you look down at your dick and you were like, I swear that's 12 inches, when in reality it's like 3. You know, you believed it was 12, so you can't really be sued for like misrepresentation, because misrepresentation requires intent, right? It requires that you lie to somebody. Lying is the element here. And if we're being honest, cheating is obviously lying.
But again, the line here is the lawyer's confidence in his ability to win a case, right?
Yeah,
that's
a pragmatic, realistic, boots on the ground type deal.
Civil suits are much more gray than criminal, for a good reason, right? When we lock somebody up, it needs to be as black and white as possible. When it comes to money, exact dollar amounts, it's kind of like, fuck, like where do we put the line?
So when looking at fraud, right, one of the principal elements of fraud is that the representer's knowledge of the representation's falsity or ignorance of the truth, right?
Yeah, that's that intent.
Is like Ngala v. Permente, like there's a bunch of cases that set this as precedent. So if you legitimately believe that what you're saying is true, right, then you're not intentionally misrepresenting. Like if you Prime guys, if like for whatever reason, every night that you go to bed, right, your mom, because I know you probably live with your mom, right, she comes in and she plays like just 50 cents magic stick, like and like as you're asleep, and like just over and over and over again on repeat, and like subliminally you develop this idea that you indeed do have the magic stick, and you believe it fully and wholly, right? And you start telling girls, right, like you unbeknownst to you start quoting lyrics from the song, so like, and you're not even recognizing that that's what's happening, right? If you go through this process, and it can be shown, right, that this happened, and your mother comes in as a witness and was like, you know, I just wanted my son to leave, and I didn't know. I don't think this streaming thing's ever going to work out for him. I was hoping that like he could meet some rich girl with his magic stick, and I was just trying to give him confidence. I did indeed do this to him, right? And like you show text messages with these girls with lyrics over and over again from this, and you can show posts where you consistently claim, you know, I do indeed have the magic stick, and there's nothing that counteracts this, right? Then that's not fraud. You're just crazy.
So I just want to ask everybody one really simple question. We are all in agreement that these women that did this were very, right? There is
some very what? You cut out.
You got cut off.
That we all agree that the women that this happened to were some degree of stupid, right? Like there's some level of personal accountability we can give them as adults that they should have known damn well.
But that does not excuse.
There's no cures being injected through.
But that does not excuse the perpetrator of the
no. Look, no. That's I get it. I'm just trying.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying that they're dumb. They were dumb.
Okay. Most people who fall for like scams, because let's be honest, most scams are, most scams that I get are like somebody, from India whose name is Chad, who's telling me that my Windows computer or my Mac computer, even though I don't have one, is infected with a virus, and I need to send like 3 iTunes gift cards, right? Yeah. Most people who think about this don't fall for it. That's why they target people who can't think about it, like old people.
Right. So unconscionability in contracts is like a legal defense for this very reason, right? Like what established unconscionability, for example, was these payday loans that were charging insane interest rates. And the I can't remember the name of the case off the top of my head, but the woman that fell for this and didn't understand what was going on, like she didn't speak English very well. She was an immigrant and she took out this loan, and they were kind of able, but even lawyers looked at it and said, dude, you needed to be like a lawyer to understand this contract. Like a normal person.
That's very controversial. It's a
right?
Very controversial case.
So whether or not unconscionability is like something that can be said here, I do think that taking advantage of someone whose mental faculties or IQ is low isn't necessarily an excuse that you should have seen the fraud coming.
Smooth finish up and then Aiko.
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, we can all agree, like, these people did something that was really fucking dumb. I'm just trying to establish a baseline that we all agree this is pretty fucking dumb.
We agree.
It's beyond dumb. It's beyond dumb. Yeah,
we agree. Yeah.
Okay.
It's beyond dumb.
I just want to make sure. Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask Doobie, given what you said about everything you've said so far, does that mean you think Harvey Weinstein should not be in jail?
I think that wasn't one of the issues with him is that he was like there were a couple instances where he went beyond the quid pro quo thing. He was like full on rape a couple of times, if I remember correctly, and that's why he was charged. But in terms of like if I'm like if he's just a hollow producer, I'm saying, hey, if you want to partner in this movie, you need to suck my dick. I think I'm totally okay with that. I think that's fine.
What about one of the men who is now on the FBI's 10 most wanted list, who was in charge of girls do porn? All they did is they found young, attractive women, flew them out to California and said, we're going to do like a photo shoot. And then once they got there, he would tell them, oh, actually, we're here to do porn. And we'll pay you to do the porn. But if you don't want to do the porn, go fuck yourself. You can find your plane ticket back.
I think that if he was lying to them initially to get them out there, and they had some kind of contract saying, hey, when you get out there, I'm going to be doing this photo shoot. Sure. But if it's just like, hey, come out to California, we'll do this photo shoot and we're going to pay you, and they actually fucking did it, and that's on them.
So now the difference is just, do you have a contract that seems legit, as opposed to, are you lying, flying out?
Yeah, I don't have an issue with lying.
Verbal contracts are perfectly valid contracts that can be enforced by law.
There's no difference. There's no difference in the person that says this.
So Doobie, if I say I will give you $10 if you mow my lawn, and you mow my lawn, and I don't pay you $10, you can take me to court for breaking contract. Now, maybe not for $10, but if it was a high enough money, you will take me to court for breaking that contract because it's a verbal contract.
How do you even
legally
prove that?
In a court of law? Like you say,
yeah, like how do you?
I made this
so
promise.
if I just said to this person, hey, I'll
with
give you
exception to real estate, by the way.
Okay, let's say I said to this person, hey, I'll give you $10,000 if you mow my lawn, and he does it, and it's not written down anywhere. I just said it. Like, how does he prove that?
When it comes to any kind of fact-finding endeavor from a court of law, it has to do with like who's more convincing to the jury, right? If it, you can prove like, yes, like this is why I mow the lawn. Like I had a witness here who heard him say this, and like the jury believes. Yeah. So ultimately, it'll come down. And if you have no witnesses and you don't appear to be a very credible witness yourself, you might lose that case, right? But ultimately, yeah. I mean, people sometimes people get away with fraud. I'm telling you though that like the legal standard here is, with exception to real estate, for all other contracts, verbal contracts are perfectly fine, perfectly enforceable. Are they smart? No, you should always get everything in writing in case they try to go back and lie. But then again, written contracts can be forged as well, right? People have made false written contracts, and then those have to go to court, and then people say, oh, this is the contract I have. No, it's not. This is the one I have. How do people find that out? Well, it comes up to a jury.
That's a separate issue from whether or not it's the same thing.
I'm looking at this girls do porn guy, and it doesn't seem like he's in trouble for that. It seems like he's in trouble for production of child pornography and forcing some of these girls into the porn or into the sex.
That's pretty bad.
That's pretty rough. Yeah, that's pretty rough. It makes sense why he's in the FBI's most wanted list. I mean, but set that aside for a moment, right? Like, do you think he did nothing wrong with the previous actions?
Me saying,
difference.
I don't know whether or not it's wrong, right? Morally is a different thing. Like I wouldn't say that Harvey Weinstein would be doing something morally good or morally neutral by saying you need to suck my dick before I give you this part of the movie. Right? I think that is wrong to do, but illegal? No, I don't think it should be illegal. This guy, having people fly out saying, "Hey, I'm going to give you this modeling gig."
Right. Well, you just don't believe that fraud is illegal unless it's like really bad fraud.
No, I think there should be like a written contract. If there's no written contract and you're just going off like your word, I think that that's your
Well, that's
responsibility to
different.
get
That's
into
being
writing.
able to prove it.
Why? Like, hold on. So
I think you should get shit in writing. Like, I think there is some responsibility on the part of the victim here to
So
be
let's
an
say the
adult and
victim-
get shit in
Even
writing.
just calling them the
but like,
victim.
hold
Let's say
on.
the
But
victim
like,
has
why
that
though?
text.
Even
But
just
hold on.
calling them the victim
Me
shows that you
agreeing
acknowledge
me agreeing that they've been
they're being
victimized.
victimized.
Hold on, me agreeing that they've been victimized doesn't mean that I think should be like legally
Okay, but let's say
punishable.
the victim has
But
a
I could,
text
I could
or
use
audio.
Why?
your
of the
same
person-
own
Harvey
arguments
Weinstein
against
saying,
you
"I will
because you
give you
got
this
mad
if
at
you give
me
me sex."
for saying you needed an implicit contract. Now you're saying you
What
need a
happens
written
then?
one. Like your own arguments go against this. It's silly.
So
Wait, hold on.
right,
Wait,
so-
hold on. You're dealing with sex between a couple, right? This is talking about what was supposed to be a business transaction. Somebody flying out to work as a subcontractor, right, and do like a modeling shoot, or an independent
Nobody said it
contractor and
was
do
a
like a
couple.
modeling shoot. That's
Well,
what
that
you were
implies
talking
there was a
about. We're talking about
contract, and
couples.
adding a term to the contract that wasn't in the contract.
If this
itself
person is
seems
flying
like
out
it'd be a
as an
violation.
independent contractor to do work for a business, right, and what they've been hired on to do is being misrepresented, yeah, if it's in writing, yeah, I think there should be legal action taken. If it's not, then hey, you should have
Okay,
done
let's
it in
say you
writing.
can-
But why
let's say
is
you
it
can prove
special that it's a business, but not special when it's someone else's livelihood that's equally damaged?
Well, it
why
is
is
a
there
business still.
why is there a difference?
Why is it different when it's a business? I think that like I'd give special status to like relationships, obviously, but also to just like people interacting outside of business settings, right? In terms of like, hey, if I'm meeting a girl at the bar, right, and I hit on her, I'm going to treat that differently than I would if I were doing the same thing at a business function, right, or at a job site, right? There'd be different rules applied to this. In that case, I don't see why we treat this any differently.
Yeah, I
let's
feel like
say-
you just gave a
we're
long
taking-
answer that said because
we
it's
need to-
different. Like, why is it different?
Hold on, there is a different context to like business settings, right? So people are there to do work, to earn a living, to make money. In a lot of cases, they're there not because, well, in this case, these are like independent contractors who are being flown out, right? So what's being represented to them before they fly out is going to be like, it's going to come from not just like an individual dude who's saying, hey, come out and I will be your agent or whatever, or not even that, or come out and I have a 10-inch dick. It's a business saying, hey, come out, I'm going to employ you to do this thing, and they fly out, and the thing that they're actually being employed for is different than what was being represented before they flew out. I think if they have it in writing, yeah, obviously it's different, and not just because.
But why is it different? Give me a why. You haven't given me a why.
Because
Just
we're
re-explain the situation.
because we're dealing with like a it's more of like a transaction, right? It's like a legal transaction rather than just like an interaction between like two people.
That's also
It's an interaction between a
It's
person
also
and a
you
business.
haven't you haven't
Hold on, it's
explained
an
the difference.
interaction between
Wait,
it's
wait,
an
wait.
interaction
Y'all
between like a person and like a business entity. It's like a different thing.
Okay, can I, Doobie? So you
It's
said
different because it's
Y'all got-
different.
So
That's all I'm saying.
I think the only answer we're gonna get is different. But my concern is, or I guess my question is, why are you so wedded to this idea that like written contracts here, because it's not the legal standard, right? Verbal contracts are just as enforceable in this kind of context. So like, what's the argument here? Like, why do you think it needs to be in writing? Why can't it be verbal, right? I know an attorney who literally requires written contracts like before he has sex with a girl. I think it's a little bit paranoid. I think it's a little crazy, but some people are paranoid.
I mean, he's
but
an attorney.
that's
That makes sense.
Yeah, he's an attorney. We're all crazy. But when it comes to like, most people don't do that, right? It's verbal contracts are just perfectly accepted. Right. Most business, right? When I go in and I buy like a car, like maybe not a car, but if I go buy like a candy bar, I don't sign a contract. I like, here's the money, here's the candy bar. All right, we're good. We walk away. If I walk in, this is like a special promotion, free candy bars to like the 8th person who walks in, and I walk in, here you go, right? Like, even if it's said, it doesn't matter. It's still valid. Why are you so married to this idea of like it having to be in writing? Why can't it be verbal?
Wait, hold on. But if it says free candy bar for this person that came in, it is in writing.
What if the person, what if the clerk says, oh, you're the 8th person, like there's no sign, the clerk says you're the 8th person that walks in, you get a free candy bar now. That is a legally enforceable contract.
Okay, maybe I've never heard of anything like that. It sounds really fucking weird. But again,
it's
you're dealing right there with an interaction between like a person, an individual, and a representative of like of a business, right? An organization, a legal entity that is not a person, right? So I think it is a little bit different. The way that liability applies, the way that the consequences of what they're representing to the public and to their customers and to their employees or prospective employees is going to be there's like a different standard attached to it because you're dealing with a business entity and not just some random individual on the street.
Okay.
Why does it have to be in writing?
He's just saying it's different.
So,
It's different.
we gotta start wrapping this up.
So-
We're over time, and I know some people have some things to do, right? I know some people have digital adventures
Games
to have.
to play, gang.
I don't want to get in their
Don't
way,
play World of
especially since
Warcraft.
they were doing me a solid.
doing it.
Okay.
Dude,
So
hold on,
let's.
can I interrupt for real quick without woke scolding? Tell your friends that want to play World of Warcraft to just not give money to Bobby Kotick and Activision. Just go play a private server. There's a ton of private servers that are very well done. You play the same fucking game
Doesn't have the Lich
without
King
giving money
thing.
to like one of the most evil companies in existence.
Doesn't have the Lich King thing though. So DLC.
Yeah, it does.
So,
There's
you
plenty
know.
of private server Wrath of the Lich King.
They have the
private
Lich King
servers.
DLC that just dropped. Didn't it
What?
just drop? Didn't
No,
it just
that's-
drop the Lich King?
it's
No,
classic.
what he's
It's
talking
classic.
about
Lich
is
King came out in like
classic
2009.
servers, right?
Oh,
It's a-
okay.
Just
I don't know. Wow. Fair enough.
Well, there are changes to this one, right? Like it's not exactly the same, but anyway, I don't want to
Yeah,
bog
I
down.
thought you implied. I thought you implied to me earlier today that it just dropped.
It
so that's
is.
why.
It did.
It did.
So
It
what-
just officially
okay.
dropped from Blizzard,
Yeah. So,
redoing their old expansions.
so what they do is it gives you access to community that private servers don't. There are other like it's not a one-to-one comparison to compare private servers to a public server or not the public server.
Wait, if Blizzard
Something.
were like operating like a sex trafficking ring in the background, right, and you knew about this, would you still play the video game?
If it was powered and
Yeah.
funded by a sex trafficking ring, is that
No,
what
just
you're being
not
referred
powered
to?
by it, right? So Blizzard happens to
so
be involved in sex trafficking.
I will tell you this. I read H.P. Lovecraft, right? I have bought his works. I've invested in IP that deals with Lovecraft, and Lovecraft was a Nazi.
He's dead.
He's straight up a Nazi, right?
Wait, hold on. He wasn't a Nazi, but he's dead, right? The people at Blizzard with a sex trafficking ring are very much alive, running this thing, and you purchasing their product and going onto their servers and buying their DLC or whatever the fuck contributes to that sex trafficking ring in their business.
the amount of the amount it contributes to is so negligible that I don't feel.
So the answer would be yes. So if they were running a sex trafficking ring in the background, you'd still play their games and give them money.
Let's put it in your outro, okay? All right. So everyone, we will continue on. This is not the end of the content. We still have more content for you, so stick around. I need to head out. If you've been enjoying this content so far, hit the exclamation of the follow button. Excuse me. Hit the follow button. And keep up with the channel.
Can't believe he
for the
basically
rest of our
bit that
social media,
bullet.
like Twitter, like Discord. We'll have our continuing conversations. I love you to be there. TikTok and of course YouTube. That's where you can find the VODs. If you missed anything, like, comment, subscribe. No, guys, if you missed anything, you missed a lot. Like you missed the dick crust moment, and that one's gonna go down for all time here. Okay, we will again. I'm gonna give an outro to these kind individuals. Right, I'm gonna let them all have a last word, but stick around. Again, we still have more content coming for you. We have another group of individuals who will jump in. All right, Lactoid, thank you for everything. Yeah, I was actually I always enjoy having you here, but like specifically today, I think it was really useful for your legal knowledge, your sharp legal knowledge, right? Whoever knew that a naturalized American could know so much about American law. I feel like this is your credit to your people. You managed to do so much so fast. So thank you, Lactoid, honestly, for all your help.
Thank you, Prime, for having me on.
Yeah, we did boycott
And
Blizzard
thank you to the
streams.
whole panel for talking.
Nobody
I thought it was
cared.
really fun. I didn't expect the second topic to be as interesting as it was. I thought we were all going to agree, but then we didn't. I think it led to a really interesting discussion, which involved my wheelhouse, which is always fun. I just wanted to quick say, legalize all drugs. Don't cheat. Doobie, I felt a lot of what you said on a spiritual level with some of your crazy opinions, but logically, I just cannot agree. And logic, as we know, should always trump feelings. So facts over feelings, as our heroes say. So if you like what I said, you want to find me. I'm an Anti-Communism United on Discord and Twitch, and then on Twitter, if you want to follow me, Anti-Com United. I do a mix of political and legal content, and I stream a bunch of cool shit. So come on by.
Thank you, friend. Seriously, Lactoid once again proves why I keep calling him back week after week. Right, great guy. So we'll go to our friend Scott. No, I'm not gonna say anything. Scott, no, I appreciate you, Scott. You know I do. I always do, no matter what happens. I thank you for being here.
Of course, it's fun. I just want to kind of reiterate what Lactoid said. Legalize drugs, don't cheat, and don't give money to Activision Blizzard. I am Scott from Fabian Liberty. You can find me pretty much on all platforms as Fabian Liberty.
Thank you so much. And guys, check him out. He's a smart guy. Let's go to our friend Wick, Death of Serenity. Again, Wick came through and helped me out. I needed him. I needed his power, right? He was one of the 7 ancient stones here that I've collected. And the stream wouldn't have been as good without him. So thank you, Wick.
Well, thank you for having me. This one was interesting. I'll say that. Yeah, I'll leave it at there. If you like what I have to say, or if you hate what I have to say, right? Come on by twitch.tv/Death of Certainty. Tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, we're going to go live with Zonia Dead, and she's going to be co-hosting my call-in show that I do every week. I try to rotate my guest slots now. And, last week we had Lactoid, and he did a very good job. And the week before, it was Kid Not Kin. The week before that was Madame Genevieve. And the week before that, to time immemorial, Nasser Erudite has been a guest on it. It's fun time. Come on down. Call in. Yell at me for my bad takes. If you want to scold me for where I put my money, that is the place and time to do it. Just real quick to address this. Look, if you are worried about your money going to individuals who are unscrupulous and who are doing bad things, I promise you, it is. No matter where you consume, no matter what companies you choose to give money to, no matter what, your money is going to be used to nefarious purposes at some point, and at some point, you will indirectly or directly contribute to this. It's not something that can be helped. I do not feel that my contributions, like by consuming a media or buying a product, does enough harm to justify me not wanting to hang out with my friends and use that social interaction. And so I reject that argument. I will buy whatever media I want, and you can't stop me, gang. But thank you for playing, and thank you for having me here. Appreciate you. That's all.
Maybe we should talk about this next week, actually. I think we should maybe dig into
have a discussion. I'm willing to come by. So
yeah, that'd be a great topic.
Wick, are those crickets in your background?
There are. There are I live
That's
in the country.
incredibly loud. Holy shit.
But yeah, there's nothing within miles here. So.
Okay. Thanks so much. Very much appreciated. Okay. We will go to our friend Aiko. Aiko, who is far more moral than Wick, right? He wouldn't put his money in these things, right? So Aiko, please, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. I've got to say, the second topic really triggered my Catholic sensibilities, and I tried not to make that a distraction in the stream. Maybe we can talk about it in the open panel a little bit. But I just want to say on the first topic, I kind of feel like I was closer to Doobie than was being acknowledged. I think it's important to acknowledge that decriminalization is not the same as legalization, that people who possess are not the same as dealers, and that putting somebody in prison is not the same as mandatory rehab. I think that there are a lot of positions that in the middle that makes sense here. I'm not a centrist per se, but I think in this instance, being able to have, this is where I kind of like the 50-state experiment, where you can have different policies in different states and then see what the results are, and then maybe talk about what we should do at the federal level once we know what those results are. And I think that the data that's coming in from Oregon, the way that it differs from what was happening in Portugal, sort of tells us maybe what works and what doesn't. How is it possible to go too far in one direction, and where exactly on the spectrum is the place to be. Not to be a consequentialist, but there you go.
No, don't worry, Eiko. I get you. Like, sometimes I've just been too ashamed to agree with Doobie in public. It's just like, I can't do this. But
I half agree with Doobie on this topic.
Okay, all right. And you're half a monster. All right, let's go to Smooth. Smooth. Thank you. We're glad to have you here. On the Reverie. We should have you here more often. And seriously, thanks for agreeing to come on and giving that topic idea, which turned out to be super contentious.
Yeah. So I just want to say, like, on the second topic, I too, like, I found myself a bit closer to what Dewey was saying towards the end there, with, like, if you agree verbally to have sex with someone to get ahead in life. The reason why I see that as a bad thing is that you're allowed to then
arguments in
come
your
back
outro
later and change the narrative. You know what I'm saying? And say that this
fucked
was
up
something
during the
bad
debate.
that happened to you. When really you use
question.
it to get ahead. And you know what I'm saying? You use your body, your appearance, whatever it was to get ahead. I don't think that punishing the people that provided you the opportunity is necessarily the right thing if they follow through with said thing. You got all the benefits of it, and then you turned around and then stabbed him in the back and said, well, I didn't want to have sex with you. Okay, so what? But anyway, I'm Smooth. I like talking on here. I like debating with people. You guys are pretty cool. This was a good one. I enjoyed you guys' takes. And I'll see y'all around.
All right, thank you.
Oh, Lactoid, check your Discord DMs.
Sure, for sure.
And finally,
just trying to settle all those discussions about dick size in the DMs.
I tried to send a picture of mine, but it said file size was too large.
I don't have those conversations.
Well, I feel like Scott has a pretty good sized dick. Like, like when it comes to other people on this panel, I feel like Scott and I would be the closest in terms of dick size. Yeah,
I think talking about your dick size is little dick energy.
This is like active fraud happening right now.
I think being ashamed of talking about your dick size is like a little bit saucy.
Our dad has told us to not be ashamed of our.
Okay. All right. Well, God damn it. Last but not least, the person who continuously proves why I refer to him as our Dark Lord and Savior, Doobie. Thank you. Seriously, no, and always all love to Doobie, because of he comes on here and sometimes it's like super unpopular, but he's up for the fight, and I do really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm Doobie. I help run the politics server on Discord, discord.gg/politics. It is the best and biggest politics server on the Discord platform. You will find anywhere from 150 to 200 people in the voice channels at any time of the day arguing about this kind of shit and lots of other shit.
And they're all animals.
And they're all animals. They're all very nice people. Okay, they're all cute, fluffy animals that want to hug you. Yeah, we do AMAs with lots of people. We have some Buddhist dude coming up, some Buddhist podcast guy that I've never heard of before. But that's happening this weekend, I think. But Mr. Beat last weekend, Vosh the weekend before that. I think we had Vosh twice the weekend before that. I can't remember. Oh, we have a guy coming up who teaches people how to print guns from home, 3D print guns. It's very interesting, dude. For free. So he's going to be there.
That'll be when the Discord gets nuked.
Yeah, basically, yeah. There's at any time of the day, the server could be deleted by Discord, by the literal furries at Discord. So, enjoy it while it's there, okay?
Hey, real quick, Prime guys, before we leave, as you can see as my background, I just wanted to shill that, yes, sometimes your money is going to go to evil people, absolutely. But if any of you are living in Europe, or if you have someone that lives in Europe that's willing to send you a phone and you're willing to use T-Mobile, you can get a Fairphone, which is the only phone known of that uses pure conflict-free resources for their phones, and they're great phones, and they have a 10 out of 10 iFixit rating. No, they do not pay me. I show for this company freely because I appreciate and support this company.
Does it
You're how
fold?
Does it fold? It does not fold.
My phone folds.
It did, but unlike your phone, it doesn't require slave labor to manufacture it. Your phone requires literal slave labor, and I don't just mean like Chinese workers in China in like a factory. I mean like individuals working in mines in Africa where they are raped and beaten to death.
Small price to pay.
Oh my God. I actually learned about Fairphone from you, Scott. Like I guess it was last year, maybe. You let me know about that. I was disappointed to know it was only in Europe. So hopefully one day they'll come to the States, because I was actually going to look into.
You can use T-Mobile if you can get the phone, but getting the phone.
Oh, can I say really quickly? It's relevant to this, right? Prime. That thing I was telling you about. I'm just gonna say it. I am purchasing a ring for reasons, right? So I brought up the possibility of a lab diamond, right? Just like the fact that they exist, right? Because I felt like, hey, blood diamonds, pretty bad. We should probably avoid paying for that kind of thing. And so I just mentioned that they exist, right? And my girlfriend said, if somebody ever proposes to me, I want a blood diamond, and I want somebody to have died for the diamond. I don't want a lab diamond; those are fake. I'm like, okay, but like, there's no difference really. Like, you have to put it in a special machine to see any difference at all. And she's like, yeah, but it's not a special if it wasn't like mined from the dirt and somebody didn't die for it.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
This is why I love this woman.
You should kill her mother and then turn her mother into a diamond, and then someone will have died for the diamond.
That's a possibility.
And then you also don't have a mother-in-law. Like, it's a win.
You've talked about you've talked about lying, right? And lying is okay. So and if she can't find out, unless she goes to like a spectrometer or something, right? Like then you can lie, right?
That's true. Yeah. Though, like I said earlier, I am chemically addicted to this person, unfortunately. So until I can get rid of that, I want to avoid lying to them.
Okay. So someone will die for your jewelry. Okay, fair enough.
Look, they already died. It's already a thing. It already exists somewhere in a vault or something.
Support the industry. Great. So anyway, let's continue on. Thanks so much, guys, for all of you for coming on. We are gonna have open walk on panel. We'd love to have you here. One of you, right? Like Dibby, you haven't had you on open one for a while. Feels like. So
I'll be there.
Come on. Thank you. Come on through. We'd love to have you. But if not, that's okay. Thanks for spending your time, your energy, your knowledge, and your passion. My community, I know they appreciate you as much as I do. Have a good one. Goodbye.
You just watched a clip from our Twitch channel, Fabian Liberty. If you like content like this, please like and subscribe here on YouTube, or go ahead and give us a follow on twitch.tv/Fabian Liberty.